Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Max Frequency Podcast. I am your host, Max Roberts, and I have the honor and privilege of being joined by Logan Moore. Hello, you're back a little early this time, or late, I suppose, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, I feel like we've always got the center part piece of the year, the E3 predictions episode that we do, and then I feel like I usually appear on one or two other random ones throughout the year.
Yeah, we keep the MFP appearances light because we have our other show, and then we did 120 something episodes of Millennial Gaming Speak. So if we keep the
until
MFP
recently,
light,
I was getting you on a podcast that I was running for a hot minute there, semi frequently, because I needed last minute guests, and I was just like, "Hey, what are you doing? You want to talk about this topic?"
You want to talk about PlayStation? I think 2 or 3 of those toward the end there were very PlayStation focused. So
mainly PlayStation focused, it seemed like.
Yeah. I mean, let's saddle up, buddy, because that's part of why we're here today. We're gonna think of this actually as a Millennial Gaming Speak reunion. Everyone, our weekly gaming talk show that went for 100-something episodes.
So for anybody who knows what that even
was.
Is.
Yeah, we did that for a few years with Talk Game News. And so we're going to do that with the Sony stuff that's been going on lately. But the real reason behind this episode, everybody, is 8 years ago on episode 48 of Millennial Gaming Speak, we talked about our 10 favorite games of all time individually. We had been doing a running series of our top 10 games of X generation. So we went back to the NES and worked our way up to modern times, which at that point would have been PS4, Xbox One, and...
No Switch. A pre-Switch existence.
A pre-Switch. It was still NX. Actually, the Breath of the Wild E3 would have just happened in June. So Breath of the Wild was known for sure at that point, but pre-Switch. So yeah, that kind of era of games. So it's been 8 years. We have PS5 Pros, Xbox Series X's, Steam Decks, Switches, Switch OLEDs, headsets, all the things.
Analog pockets,
little yellow handheld with a crank on it.
I mean, we're about to have a Switch 2.
Switch 2 is
almost a thing.
Basically, I guess we do this every Nintendo generation cycle, right before the next console. But I think we both independently were thinking about these lists and thought it'd be fun to revisit them.
Yeah, this is something that's been you approached me with this idea, but this is something that's been batting around in my head for a hot minute here as well. Because, as we'll both talk about here later in the episode, there's been a lot of... I was almost shocked at how many games have come out over the past 8 years that I was like, oh, this needs to be in my top list here.
It's been
for some reason, it has been a very good run, but I don't know why I was under the assumption that nearly a third of our lives have passed since we last did this.
Oh, don't say those words.
But that's just how it is. And
that's
so
true.
For some reason I was like, no, those games I played in the, as a kid and young adult, those will always probably be the fixtures of my top 10 or whatever. And it's like, oh no, not necessarily. Not really, I guess.
Yeah.
The whole another chunk of my life is now come and gone. So
yeah, we're old fogies now, and we have a lot to wrestle with here. But before we do that, let's talk about Sony, because they've had a month. It's probably my favorite meme of the year, and apparently it's an old meme according to Know Your Meme or what have you. But it's so over, we're so back, kind of this arc of bouncing back and forth. And I have this image that just keeps growing this month, and it actually perfectly encapsulates Sony's late August of 2024 to late September of 2024. It's been a ride, and I really wanted to talk about the state of play with you and the whole 30th anniversary collection / pre-order specifically, because we were in those trenches.
We were, unfortunately.
But yeah, and then it just seemed kind of like a fun Millennial Gaming Speak reunion type thing. So I guess before the state of play, how are we feeling about Sony in general right now? Like, what's the pulse at here?
I don't know. It's bad. It's bad, but it's not. Like, it's really strange. I mean, and we talked about this on some of those podcasts that I mentioned appeared on. That, like, they've had a very rough generation in terms of, like, business decisions that they have made and future of the brand, and there's not been a lot of exclusives. I mean, there has been, obviously, your God of War Ragnaroks and your Forbidden Wests and your Spider-Man 2s. Like, those things are all huge and they've done well, and that's not to say that they haven't. But, like, the frequency of single-player exclusives has obviously dropped off, partially just because games take so long to make now, which is less of a PlayStation problem and more just, like, a general game development thing. But yeah, then they keep making all these decisions, like, what is starting our whole "it's so over, we're so back" trajectory here on this meme, which is the life and very quick death of Concord. Like,
everyone's favorite game.
Yeah. So they're just in a weird spot, and I think the thing that I can say right now about PlayStation moving forward is that I'm concerned because I don't know if I like the people that they have leading the company right now. I think in retrospect, like, you had guys like Andrew House that I think understood kind of everything about, like, he was really the best, like, leader they've had within the past 10 or 15 years in my eyes, because I feel like he understood all aspects of not only the business but also what fans want. He understood the Japanese market. He was out here speaking Japanese, talking to Kojima in these videos and stuff that they're doing. Like, he was like the perfect encapsulation, I feel like, of what PlayStation was and needed to be, not only when he was at the helm, but for the first 15, 20 plus years of the brand. And then, like, they had Layden come in, and I feel like Layden really understood the community. And I feel like Layden was a big proponent of why things like PSX came back and were happening in the first place. Like, he seemed to really understand the community, and he has said some stuff in recent years that's still kind of, like, on social media that shows to me he gets PlayStation fans and, like, knows what we want, knows what we like. And then you had Jimmy come in, who I think, understood business stuff to a certain degree. All of this is to say, like, I think Holst, who is now really running the show, there's another co-CEO or somebody.
Yes.
Somebody who was it was the guy who was in the 30th anniversary reveal video. He's like, look at these consoles we got. He's like the hardware and tech representative.
No one will be able to buy
guy.
these.
Yeah. Here's one of the 12,000 that we have. I think the problem with
Nishino.
Okay. I think the problem with Holst right now is that he is a developer, which the others that have been in charge have not been. And I think that's a good thing to have, like, that, that history of working in a studio and making games and stuff like that. But I think it kind of shows in something like Concord that he's giving these teams too much rope and they're hanging themselves with it. And I think he's too big of a proponent, and he's probably too pro developer in some sense, when he needs to be more of, like, I'm the boss and we need to get things done and this doesn't look good. And, like, because, I mean, that one report that came out said, like, a lot of the issues with Concord was, like, toxic positivity. And I would not be shocked if a lot of that stemmed from Holst as well. Like, this looks great. This is, oh my gosh, this is exactly what we want. And I just believe that because he comes from the development side of things. And so I don't think he's cut out to be the sort of, like, hard-nosed guy in charge that PlayStation probably needs to have right now. So I'm concerned about him.
It's... Yeah, I look at Jim Ryan as an analogy to another very successful company, and one that I think Sony tries to emulate quite often is Apple. And after Steve Jobs' death, Tim Cook came to the top. Tim Cook was all production, the production line, getting things out efficiently and swiftly, models, and he's really tuned Apple, obviously, into this $1 trillion company that it is today, and is quite successful. But Tim is not outspoken like Steve was, not inherently like the hands-on visionary product type of CEO. He's definitely more business leaning than Steve was, while cutthroat and ruthless, but also designing. Steve would write a paper why Java emulator in web browsers is bad, that type of thing, and be a public statement. But Tim Cook would never say anything like that. And I look at Jim Ryan in a similar way. And if I remember correctly, Jim Ryan has a very similar background of like production line efficiency, if I remember correctly. And he rose up at when it was it? In 2019 is when he became the CEO?
2019 is when he took over. Yeah, he took over right before the PS5 promotion, right, and everything to come with it.
And I think that was instrumental in getting the PS5 launched the way it was through COVID, getting these units as quickly shipped out. We remember that the PS5 launch was very notoriously difficult to get. It was a very long time before we saw units on store shelves. The demand was so high, and the PS5 has sold incredibly well. And so I think Jim deserves some credit there. But then you've got the game development decisions, and I think this is where we're starting to see a ripple effect of consequences. And not just Concord, but Concord is certainly the biggest example of this. But Sony, obviously, throughout the PS4 generation, saw these live service models pick up. Sony owns the single-player, storied, narrative-driven video game market fairly well. They also own a pretty sizable chunk of single-player open-world games that are praised quite well, often married all of that together. But they didn't really have the multiplayer thing down. And I think decisions were made, balls were rolled, and we've ended up with a lot of projects that, as you and I have previously talked about, multiplayer games out the wazoo. They bought Jade Raymond's studio, Haven, when Google Stadia shut down. They bought Firewalk from Probably Monsters. When I dug into that whole thing, it's clear the positivity angle is also baked in Probably Monsters. And who founded that? Former Bungie developer Ryan. He's got two first names, is how his name is.
I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah, I can't remember the name either.
But he's the developer, and it's that developer mindset. And then they bought and were sold and coming through. And the other piece of the pie here is all of this Hollywood stuff that is coming out of PlayStation as well, which makes sense for Sony. They also have a film and television division, which helped create shows like Breaking Bad, or they own Spider-Man still, chunks of that. And then, obviously, all the other original Sony Picture stuff. And their TV stuff with video games has been, so far, successful. Even Twisted Metal, I think, is getting a second season.
Twisted Metal did surprisingly well, yeah.
And when you see that, I think a lot of decisions are like, we need to push in these types of directions. And now we're seeing some of those decisions come to market, because it does take a long time for these to come to fruition, and some are hitting, some are not. Helldivers 2 was in development forever. And that was a second-party game, so there's a little bit of distance there, but it had a great, successful launch, and then has fallen off, apparently. It seems what is the studio that does Helldivers? Arrowhead. They seem to have not been able to, probably weren't even expecting the initial response, and just haven't been able to upkeep it. And then obviously Concord, The Last of Us Online. I mean, the decisions are still kind of looming. We've got Fair Games out there, which is supposed to be 2025, if I remember correctly. We'll see how it goes. Ghost of Tsushima had a multiplayer. We'll probably see that come back in some capacity here when we talk about the sequel. But I think we're starting to see decisions that were at the start of the PS5 generation coming into fruition, and they're going to be impacting the rest of the generation. And I don't know if I like that direction so much, because it has been a long time since some studios have put out games. We still don't know what Sony Santa Monica is doing. We don't know what We know what Naughty Dog is doing, but we don't know what Naughty Dog is doing. We just learned what Sucker Punch is doing. I guess that's another thing. They've allowed the studios to be pretty tight-lipped, which is good and bad.
It makes me less excited about the future. Like you're asking about the future with the PS4 generation. I felt like I knew what to expect for a span of 5 years there. Like, so they had their slate pretty well lined up.
But it's one of those things, right? Of, Uncharted 4 is coming out, but it's delayed like 2 years out of its original window. And so it's like this constant carrot that keeps getting pulled away. Or you find out Ghost of Yotai. Is it Yotai? Is that what the internet
Yotai, I think it is.
Ghost of Yotai, and it's out next year. Probably the back half of next year, if not delayed into 2026.
Yeah, I feel like it'll be delayed.
Or you get a Fallout 4 situation where it's like, and it's out in 6 months or 4 months or whatever that was. There's good and bad in both, all of it. I don't know, but I feel like Sony has kind of brewed their own perfect storm of just, I'm not as excited for the future. Naughty Dog hasn't put out an original game in almost 5 years. We don't even know what they're working on officially. Like, that bums me out.
We did for a long time, and then they canceled it with the online game.
It's so God, I don't. Part of me is like they dodged a bullet with that one. The other part of me is like, no, they didn't. Bungie sucks. I don't know. It's just, and we've talked about that extensively. We don't need to get into it here, but I don't know, Mike. So I still, I'm on the Sony pony. I'm saddled up, but I'm not riding with such fervor into the sunset, ready to go. But what am I to say? I bought a PlayStation 5 Pro. I'm a part of the problem, I guess.
The thing that you mentioned that I want to respond to really quick is that, like, you're not a fan of where PlayStation is going with the rest of this generation, like you mentioned, fair games and stuff like that. And what
I'm not optimistic, I should say. Like, fair games, I watched the trailer the other day. It seems fine and, like, conceptually cool. We'll see how it pans out.
What we still have yet to see, though, is what the fallout from Concord is. Like, not only, when it comes to, like, is Firewalk going to close or stay open, or what heads are going to roll there? Like, I think one of the directors has already left, I saw. But, like, those questions, yes, but also, how does this change Sony's planning and trajectory moving forward? Because, like,
I think I'm
sure. Well, yes, these things that are incubating and that are already far enough along, I think we see. But, like, how many things have been scrapped behind the scenes now that we will never see? And I don't know, maybe I feel like we still know a lot of what they're doing. Like, they're making a Horizon MMO too. They're, fair games.
Horizon. We know Corey is working on a new game. Presumably Santa Monica also has another God of War game in development on some capacity. It's just still too well. We know what Insomniac is doing for the next decade. That's not a surprise. Man, where is Wolverine, man? I mean, I know where it is.
2026 is the leak.
Yeah, but, like, come on.
Yeah,
but we know what Insomniac's doing for the next decade, which I guess. I mean,
if you want to see, if you really want to know where's Wolverine, I'm sure you can go find hours of gameplay footage online.
I've watched gameplay. I've read the script. I know how this game goes.
I didn't read the script. I read, like, the outline of, like,
I won't spoil anything, like, how it starts and where it ends.
I know, like, the other playable characters and the villains and who's the ultimate final boss and those sorts of things. It seems really cool.
Sounds interesting. So yeah, like, we know what Insomniac's up to. Obviously Polyphony is going to be working on Gran Turismo for the rest of gen. Bungie, Marathon, and Destiny 2 until they recoup some costs.
Whatever they just spun off that they're working on now. That action game thing. So there's that. But.
Yeah, and Naughty Dog's churning away on two games, Last of Us Part 3 and new IP for the first time in over a decade, which will be exciting eventually. Like, those things are cool, but I don't know, it's taking too long, man.
I'm honestly fine with this for two reasons. Is that I feel like there's still more games than ever before. Like I've talked recently to you guys that I think a lot's been made out about, how this fall is not very strong.
What are people talking about? A Zelda game came out the day we're recording.
Yeah, well, I've heard a lot of people say oh, this fall's not that strong, and I feel like you can make a case more for that now, especially since the Assassin's Creed game got delayed. But every week there's something coming out that I'm like, dang, I want to play that. And a lot of it is remakes or remasters or ports or things like that, but it is still the Dead Rising remake just came out, and I played that, and I love that. They're remastering Shadows of the Damned. I love that game. I want to play that next month. So there's a lot of little small things happening. The indie space is still large. There's still things coming out of that space that I'm really interested in. I just played Plucky Squire. I really like that. So it's this. There's more than ever, but the AAA releases are diminishing. The reasons you would buy a console historically are not as front and center now compared to how they were in the past. But that's fine. I don't know. We'll get that stuff when we get that stuff, I guess.
Yeah, it'll all eventually show up, and I am drowning in games to play. I'm not, I guess I just like the idea of knowing what I'm waiting for instead of it just being this nebulous thing. Yeah, I want to play another God of War game, but maybe I'd like to know it's called God of War Cairo, or
Atreus goes to college.
Yeah, I don't know. So I guess that's our pulse. But you know what we will be able to play soon? 2017's hit game, which also was not out when we made our top 10. Horizon Zero Dawn remaster. Let's talk about the state of play, buddy. I wrote a quick list. We've already actually mentioned Ghost of Yotai. So let's just start there. I am so happy. It's a new place in Japan, new samurai. It's not Jin. Shushima. I've seen
so many people saying "Oh man, I really wanted to see Jin again." I'm like, he had a pretty definitive arc. What are you supposed to do? Put him in a second game, and he's like, "I'm still struggling with killing people silently, and I'm a samurai." And blah blah blah. It's what else are you really supposed to do with him?
Yeah. No, Jin had his arc. So I'm thrilled. I'm curious. This one's set 300 years or something in the future, I think. 200 to 300 years. I'm curious to see how that... Sure, we'll be able to tell visually how that's reflected in the architecture of towns and things like that. But how does that reflect itself in the gameplay? There's clearly a gun, some other weapons. So, that'll be fun to feel out. I guess in my mind... Is it a little bit like the jump from Assassin's Creed Brotherhood to Assassin's Creed 3? We just went from Rome to American Revolution Wars. Here's some muskets now.
I don't know. I mean, I guess they could have that. That would...
Well, she has a gun in the final shot.
Yeah.
So there is a gun in the game.
Yeah.
I'm curious how the new time zone will reflect. You have a doggy that you get to send off. That'll be interesting.
A wolfie.
Yeah. Yellow. I hope you like the color yellow. Seems to be pretty prominent.
Yeah. It's... I wrote something the other day about just how I hope they try to push the genre forward more with this game rather than just being let's create a really high quality version of what everybody else is doing in this space. Because that's really more or less what Ghost of Tsushima felt like to me. It was pretty... Presentation was off the charts, had a fine story for the most part, okay combat, but everything else, pet 50 foxes, write 30 haikus, all those sorts of things. And yes, you're still going to have things littered throughout the game world to do, obviously, but the game itself, we're in a post Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Elden Ring, Red Dead Redemption 2, all of these things that have come out and have been the pillars of the open world genre for the past 6 to 7 years would probably have not been taken into account, obviously, when this game was conceptualized. Like Ghost of Tsushima was probably thought of and conceptualized around like 2015, 16, earlier maybe.
Yeah,
I mean after Second Son.
I mean they were in the middle of development when those games were really coming out to the forefront, and it's hard to pivot, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I want to see them, not just rip off things like that, like explore 100 shrines. Now you can glide. Here's 100 shrines around. Like, don't do exactly that. But
that's
try
what
to.
Forbidden West did.
It was really
a glider.
Ghost of Tsushima was really a Ubisoft game with a prettier coat of paint to me. It's very strange to me how people talk about that game, because I see so many people saying this is a masterpiece. It's one of the greatest games ever made. Like I went and looked the other day, and like it's one of the rare instances where the Metacritic like average score for it for users, which I know doesn't matter at all, but it is like drastically higher than what the like critics review is. And I was like, oh wow, huh? It's like a 9 point something, whereas critics are like at an 84 or 83 maybe overall aggregate score.
I could see this. Obviously consumers wanted open world samurai game for quite a while, and done well. And Sucker Punch absolutely delivered that. It is a very stylish game, dripping in style. I'm drenched in it. And I still think, we talk about all the petting all the foxes, which was so obnoxious. But like, I also love the samurai duels. Those are super cool. So like, it does have unique offerings, but it's just more. I wonder though, your user reviews, I wonder if that's people coming back retroactively after the multiplayer mode, which I heard was quite good.
Maybe, but I feel like more often than not, like, as somebody who's in media and sees a lot of, I still post stuff on social media all the time for our stories, and I see people respond to it. Like, just that sort of feedback I get whenever we've written about that game over the past few years, it's kind of the things I was saying before. I love Jin. The game's so pretty. I love the world and the story, and the combat was so great. So I don't really ever see anybody mention the Legends content, even though that was obviously well received in its own right. But I don't think that's what people are really lauding it for necessarily.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the trailer was very pretty. I went and watched it in Japanese today, and it immediately made it cooler and better. I'm pumped. It sounds like our protagonist is hunting down people to kill in a path of vengeance. I wonder if the key art actually has anything to do with it, because of the key art shows her with like six swords around her. I wonder if there's 6 targets, 6 other samurai to fight. That could just be reading into the key art too much. But not gonna lie, got a little Fiendish 5 Sly Cooper energy from this. Like, oh, I must go out and take out these people who killed my parents, which would be very Sucker Punch in a roundabout way. But if you could, if you are supposed to take out X amount of villains, I'd like if you could take them out in any order, approach, situation, scenarios.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Very Breath of the Wild. Like, hey, there's 4 ancient beast things. I can't remember what they're called. Is that what they're called?
Divine Beast.
Divine Beast. There's 4 divine beasts out there. Go find them. You can. That's it. That's the goal. Have fun. Like, I hope it's that sort of thing where you have a broad goal, but you need to, take down these 6, 7, 10, 12, I don't know, however many people, but you can do it however you want. And there might be an ideal path or a golden path that the game will kind of try to focus you down, but in reality,
follow the breeze.
Yeah, in reality, you can do it any way you want. I think that would be far better than
that would be very helpful. I do feel like this samurai Japanese stuff is having a bit of moment in media as well, between what is that show that just won a bunch of Emmys?
Shogun.
Yeah, that obviously received super well. a show I watched on Netflix, Blue Eye Samurai, superb, very similar energy to what this plot sounds like. So I'm all for that type of stuff in media, and clearly other people are as well. So it'll be cool to see how this actually pans out when it arrives on PS5 in 2025. Maybe.
It's going to be 2026.
Probably.
They're gonna realize that they'll launch within 4 weeks of GTA 6, and they'll say no, thank you. We're okay actually, unless they're really trying to chase Game of the Year awards or something like that. Assuming, I guess, that GTA itself wouldn't win them.
The next Horizon game, probably the MMO, will launch same day as GTA 6. That's probably what will.
Yeah, because that's the joke, I guess.
I mean,
when did Forbidden West launch? What else was out that day?
Elden Ring.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, that makes more sense.
It was just a bad time for Horizon. And this one, what is launching with? We'll talk about the next one.
Dragon
Horizon
Age.
Zero Dawn, same day as Dragon Age. You know, that's a bit softer, but yes, Horizon Zero Dawn being remastered. It's not surprising. This is what Sony bought Nixxes for, to make remasters and to port things to PC. So, like, that studio is doing its job. Obviously, Sony loves Horizon a lot, based off all of these plans and announcements that we are aware of or privy to from that online MMO. Obviously, the third game, which is in works at Guerrilla. The PSVR 2 launch title was a Horizon game. There's a Netflix series, which I think is on ice or something. It got reworked, right?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, reports are that like the showrunner was like, I don't know, problematic or something like that. Like,
okay, so that show is in trouble, but they have a big vision for Horizon. So it makes sense to, once again, remaster a game that doesn't feel that old, but when you look at it on paper, it's 8 years. I mean, The Last of Us Part 1 is a remake.
If Nintendo came out with a Breath
game.
of the Wild remaster tomorrow, people would say, what? I mean, it's really the same thing, because you got to think that they've already had a sequel to, like, this is what I don't understand is, like, more often than not, what you're trying to remaster is something that hasn't been available in like any capacity for a hot minute. Like Dead Rising makes sense, where it's like, okay,
or
we haven't
Silent
had
Hill 2.
Sure, yeah. Like even with Dead Rising, like not only is the original game far enough away at this point to where it makes sense to bring that back, but there has not been anything Dead Rising for almost 10 years. So it's like, okay, this makes sense. Yeah, then you would probably want to remaster something. While Zero Dawn is 7, going on 8 years old, Forbidden West is 2. So it's like, if you have a desire for Horizon, it's satiated. Like, and then you mentioned the VR game as well. Like, there are, which I get that that's a different type of gameplay experience and stuff like that. But like, we're not light on Horizon at all. Like, there is not a yearning from the people for Horizon that I can tell.
Here's my thing. Like, I get it from a technical perspective. Like, just bring the visuals up in line with the current games and hardware. Like, sure, whatever. Put it to PC, polish some things up, make them closer together. That is exactly what Last of Us Part 1 is, right? It is, let's make it look like The Last of Us Part 2. Let's make these games more intricately tied together, both in title and presentation. But, like, I think The Last of Us is a better game than Horizon Zero Dawn.
Well, it's just like a tighter game too. Like, it's
that's 13 hours, not 40. Horizon Zero Dawn doesn't feel like, as weird as this says, deserving of the remaster.
Didn't it already have a PS5 update for it as well?
That I'm not confident about.
I thought it did.
I don't know. It would have been on the Pro, so it's possible. There may have been.
It wouldn't have been on the Pro. I just mean like a base PS5 update.
No,
like when the PS5
I'm sorry.
Came out.
Saying Pro now means two things. The PS4 Pro. it had probably some support for that. So I imagine there's some PS5 performance enhancements somewhere in there. It is like, if these games, I don't know, like if the two Horizons games were more closely tied together, I'd be a bit more lenient. And as far as like, if you made a narrative choice that impacted the sequel, like, sure, bring that up to date visually and then they tie better together or something. I don't know. It just feels weird.
It's part of this, cross-media focus that Sony has had. Clearly, this was supposed to come out somewhat close to the TV show, and the TV show seems like it is in the grave. So now you've just got this standalone thing. Because, look at, it's this coming week, actually, the Until Dawn remake remaster. Like, that's also kind of one that's like, why are we getting this? But the answer is because they're making a movie. And the movie, I think, comes out next year. So, like, there it is.
Yeah. What are you going to do? I am happy there's an upgrade path for those so inclined. I do find it hilarious that they've bumped up the digital price so that you can't get it cheaper. You have to buy it full price digitally no matter what, unless you already own it digitally, I suppose. But then, really, you just got to buy it physically.
I've seen some people talking about that too. Like, they have given that game out for free in the past. Like, that was one of their games that in 2020, their whole like stay-at-home promotion, they gave that game away to everybody for free. Which I know you would have had to be in the ecosystem at the time. So if you're only just now getting into PlayStation, then you don't own it. But still, like, there has been plenty of chances in the past.
Those people are allowed to upgrade. This includes fans who have added it. The only like copies that don't count digitally are anything redeemed with PS Plus. So I assume at some point it was also a PS Plus game.
Yes.
So those folks cannot upgrade. Very Final Fantasy VII, it sounds like. But if you own the game, which I assume most PS4 to PS5 owners do, you can upgrade for, $10. And it is on PC as well. So those people as well could basically buy a $10 upgrade patch.
I don't even know if they have to pay anything. I think they just get an update. Maybe.
No, it says $10 for both PS5 and PC.
That's weird. Usually PC stuff, it's just like, let's push out an update and it changes the version. Yeah.
It's all new. I guess. It's whatever. It is a whatever thing. Can't wait for Days Gone to be next.
That's what I was going to ask you about. Not that we need to talk too long about that one, but it's very funny that game had this big falling out and, drama surrounding that they weren't going to make a sequel. But now, 3 or 4 years later, they're like, well, yeah, heck yeah, remaster, let's do it. It's like, what is... It's just incongruent with it, like these decisions that Sony is making. They're all over the place.
It is congruent with let's remaster the PS4 generation. It's
I guess
not congruent with like let's give Bend a sequel. Whatever. It's just we'll see. I'm curious. Where's our Order 1886 remaster? Oh wait, we doesn't need one because it's still gorgeous. That game is stupid.
That's never happening. R.I.P. Ready at Dawn.
Truly R.I.P. Thanks, Zuck. Thanks, Zucky boy. Maybe I should put the Order 1886 on my top 10 favorite games.
I don't think you should.
Where's our PS5 Pro patch? Speaking of PS5 Pro, they did some montages. We're going to talk about the Pro here in a little bit, I think, with the 30th anniversary collection. But the Pro continues to be advertised. Alan Wake 2 is getting Control DLC, is what I could tell from it.
Yeah.
The Lake House.
This DLC seems like it's going to cross over with the DLC of Control.
Yeah.
Because
is this Control?
Yeah, because a lot of things referenced in this trailer are tied in, or referenced in Alan Wake 2 as well. But they're more specifically referenced in the Control DLC. So this seems like it's going to be like telling the story that was told via like documents and things like that was in Control.
In Control.
Yeah, because Control kind of pieced together like that we've been to this area of the world before and investigated this situation with Alan and Cauldron Lake and that sort of thing. And it seems like it's going to now allow you to play that story. That would be my guess. The trailer really doesn't come out and say. I'm excited. I haven't played the previous DLC yet, so I've kind of been waiting to play them both here back to back.
Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe you got to wait for the Pro, though, now. It's going to run on the Pro pretty well, apparently.
I mean, I'm not assuming anything, but I'm under the assumption that we'll get a Pro at my job sent to us, and if that is the case, that's one of the first games I will be trying, for sure. Without a doubt.
Dragon Age. Oh, gosh, what is it called? It starts with a V. Veilguard?
No, it starts with a the. The Veilguard. Can't just be Dragon Age Veilguard. Dragon Age the Veilguard. Drop the the. It's cleaner.
Yeah.
In the words of Justin Timberlake.
It has an art style. It's something.
I don't like looking at this game.
Yeah, I don't like the look of it.
It looks. I don't even know how to. It looks hero shootery. I don't want my Dragon Age to look like that.
Overwatchy.
Yeah, if you go back and look at like OG Dragon Age, it looks like more akin to Dark Souls. Far more akin to Dark Souls than what this is now. And they have slowly stepped foot in this direction. Like, this art style is definitely not so far gone or far off from Inquisition, because Inquisition has kind of tiptoed in this direction as well. But yeah, it's jarring. I don't know. I'm very torn on this game because I like this series a lot. I've played all of these games, but it's also a direct sequel to Inquisition. Like, and I say that, not just saying this is like a sequel to Inquisition in the way that like Mass Effect 2 would be a sequel to Mass Effect 1. Like, it's directly continuing that story in some major key ways. But that game came out 10 years ago. And so it's not really fresh in my mind, and I'm not really. Obviously, I could go back and play it. But I don't.
You could look up the YouTube summary video.
Yeah, it's just been so long, and I know I liked Inquisition at the time, but I forget so much about it. I don't remember the choices I've made. I saw so many people complaining this week because they announced that they were only going to be bringing over like 3 choices from that game that you could make, like 3 key decisions that you could select at the start of the game. People were like, "Oh, this sucks. I want more of my decisions to impact the story of this game." I'm like, dude, I don't remember anything from that game. How do you remember anything from it? And like, I don't know. Obviously, people play games differently than me. A lot more people are out there replaying things like this constantly. But that's not me. So I don't think this game looks bad though, other than the visual complaints I guess I had. I think everything else looks pretty solid. So
okay, I'm happy for the Dragon Age people. BioWare needs kind of a slam dunk right now.
Yeah.
So
they need like a 360 between the legs dunk is what they need. They need something.
I thought that was a Xbox reference. Like,
no,
360 days.
No, that's me saying they need not just a slam dunk. They need a showy 50-point dunk in the dunk contest. They need something really big here. So
yeah, it is.
I hope that happens, but also, I don't know. Maybe I hope it doesn't. I don't want I don't want the company to go out of business and everybody to lose their jobs. But like, if this game doesn't pan out in the way that I like, that will have been
2 in a row, 3 in a row.
No, like 4 in a row, I guess.
Well, there's Mass Effect, Anthem, and I was counting the Veilguard, so that's 3. What else was there? I guess that's
3. Maybe there wasn't anything else. I thought there was a third one, but I think I'm wrong. Yeah, it's just massive. It's just
Inquisition, I think, would have been the one before it.
Yeah. So okay, this would be number 3 in a row. 4 would be Mass Effect, and that would be what would be bothering me if that one was a flub.
I mean, if we go back into our podcast, you were pumped for Andromeda.
Yeah, I know. It really was.
Dark times.
It wasn't even. No, actually, it was bad. I was gonna say it wasn't even that bad, but no, it wasn't great. It was not anything really. So,
oh well. Hitman, they've answered my prayers. They're finally just bringing VR to the PS5 and PSVR 2. I just wanted them to do that with Hitman for so long. It was Hitman 3 was PS1, PSVR 1. I was like, oh my gosh, let's just get them honored. This looks to be the full complete VR package, not just Hitman 3, but all 3 games.
World of Assassination.
A terrible name. So I'm glad that's just finally making the jump over.
That is a really bad name now that I think about it. I've never really stopped to think about what I think about that name.
Just be, yeah, it's bad. I'm glad that this felt like the last thing that Hitman needed to do for me personally. I know they just came out with Hitman 3 cel-shaded version on Quest. So now I'm happy that this is finally coming and give this a shot with real good controllers and tracking. Oh,
there's a question right there for you.
Your MetaQuest 3, not
still
3S,
haven't unboxed it and set it up.
Just a 3.
It's just sitting there.
I'm happy for that. Then Amy Hennig's games making a comeback. Legacy of Kain 1 and 2.
That's exactly the way I was going to frame this, because I wanted to specifically ask you about this, is do you have interest in this? And obviously I know these 2 games are part of a larger series, but just on its own, do you have any sort of fascination with seeing the roots of Amy Hennig here?
I suppose so. Like, yeah, I'm generally curious. I truly do not even know what kind of games these are. I have no idea. I couldn't even.
They're
really
like action platformers, I believe.
See, that sounds kind of fun.
Kind of akin to something like Prince of Persia from back in the day, to my knowledge.
Okay, that's not terrible. I could be persuaded. I'm not against it. I just have no. The only thing I know is Amy Hennig did some stuff on these.
Yeah, they're action adventure games. They have platforming elements, I believe. I don't know anything about them as well, but I've heard enough people praise them over the years that I'm interested.
Yeah,
and I like games from this era, and that's kind of the one other thing I wanted to talk to you about here that kind of segues into the final thing that I mentioned that I wanted to bring up here, which is just PS Plus. Not as much of the PS Plus games for this coming month, even though those are very good. Play Dead Space remake. But they announced that they're bringing back Dino Crisis, and then another one of their upcoming ports is actually the original Legacy of Kain game, the one on PS1, I think, Blood Omen Legacy of Kain. So that's the first one, and then that segues into this remaster, which is the next 2 entries in the series, and I think there's one more after that. Don't hold me to that if I'm wrong. I've never played these games, but I'm pretty sure that's the way it goes. And so I just wanted to bring up that, like, I think they have been bringing back so many old games lately, and I love it. And I have a back catalog of probably 15 to 20 games on my PlayStation Store wish list that I really want to play at some point. And I didn't know if you still feel the same way, or if you are pleased with how this has been going recently. I don't know. Just the PS2 initiative really has been positive. We've gotten Sly Cooper this summer. I feel like that sets things up to, if that's arrived, why not Sly 2 eventually? Why not Sly 3? And, these are the things that I want. We've now got all the Ratchet and Clank games, I believe, playable on PS5, which is really cool to me. So yeah, I just think they've been doing a better job recently with all of this, and I'm happy about that.
Well, good. I'm glad you're happy. I don't know. I just don't have PS Plus Premium. Like, that's just too much.
Well, I don't either. I would piecemeal buy all of these that I would want. So it's less about PS Plus itself.
I do appreciate that you can do that. You can just buy them. I do appreciate that. I wish Nintendo would let you do that as well. But my thing is, most of the games that I would want to play that I know of on these libraries, I already own. So and I have the means to play them in a very high visual quality.
I know you've got your misters and things.
Yeah, I have the 4K scalers and all the things to make everything look really nice and modern. So I do get the appeal of it. But yeah, it's good for Sony. Now let's talk about how things are bad with Sony. Because they hate us.
They hate the fans.
the nostalgia tax is sitting in line for 3 hours and not getting what you truly want. The PlayStation 1 turns 30 in December based off its Japanese release. So, of course, Sony doles out very beautiful hardware. PS5 Pro bundle, $1,000 bundle. A PS5 Slim. A Portal, an Edge controller, a regular controller. All designed after that gray, iconic PS1 design. And the launch was an absolute disaster, from a complete lack of communication about the time and pricing to the actual event itself, where it was, based off what I could tell, really you needed to just happen to be in line right when the queue was time. Like, you needed to be in line so that you would be toward the end of the line right when the line was paused. So it was this terrible dance of...
But it said we all got placed in random order once they decided to do that. And we kind of seem to... That kind of tracks based on just our little group that we tried to do this with.
Once you complete the line. So really what we needed to do was be at the end of the line to get through the line, and then you're placed in a random number. See, because your progress bar was like halfway, and mine was at the start, and Grant was in between us, and that was the order that we got through. It's post.
I guess that's true.
So it mattered where you were in this virtual line when the line paused, is from what I could suss out. And that was a complete debacle because PlayStation Direct servers were slammed from 6 a.m. up until the launch of the item 4 hours later. So there was no way to actually be in any sort of real line. And it was with only 12,800 of these particular Pro units, and no one really wanted this. If you were buying a Pro, you wanted the bundle, not obviously the regular PS5. So it was just a very frustrating morning.
And not only that, but just yes, there's, a very limited number of the PS5 Pro in the first place. But why did they have to bundle it with the Edge to chalk up the price another $300? That was, I know why they did it, because they wanted to get that sweet money there, and they knew that they could do it. And maybe they felt like they would filter out a couple more people who wouldn't get it, and then those who would want to get the bundle could get the bundle. But come on, everybody was gonna get that who wanted it, or had the opportunity to get it, I should say.
Yeah, I think the price only going up further actually entices scalpers more, because scalpers don't care about what the base price is, because the goal is to recoup their money. And on an item like this, you'll recoup your money. So it's just more enticing for scalpers, quite honestly. And it's just disappointing to see. I'm not saying that I'm entitled to a gray PS5 Pro bundle thing, but it is just frustrating that the people who truly wanted it and would have paid $1,000 for it couldn't do so, or didn't have clear method of doing so communicated to them effectively and fairly. We joked about this the other day, but a sneakers drop is more fair.
Yeah. Or at least based on what we can tell.
Exactly.
I think the weirdest thing to me about this is they could have made a select run of these bundles numbered at 12,300 or whatever, that had the etching on it, and maybe had just a couple other things. And then if they would have just, if they really wanted to increase the sales of the PS5 Pro, because that thing is still sitting. I got a message or an email today from Sony saying, hey, did you know the PS5 Pro is available for pre-order? Go pre-order it now. And it's still sitting there. I guarantee you they could have sold out of their entire stock of PS5 Pro consoles if they would have just made this gray color scheme and threw a colored PlayStation logo on it and just allowed people to get as many as they wanted. Because people would have absolutely done that.
Yeah, so. I totally agree. They could have bumped up the price, that nostalgia tax, and just let people get a non-numbered limited one. And then that would have helped weed out some people and still sold pros. So it's exciting, or, the idea of that is exciting, I should say. But it is frustrating. But, the odds of getting one yesterday, knowing the situation going in, was pretty slim. So I accepted fate pretty early on. And I did go ahead and pre-order a PS5 Pro. Not because Sony sold me on it, but because Digital Foundry did. And I have a sickness, and I want my frame rates and my resolutions. So but then, because I didn't get the bundle, so I guess Sony wins ultimately. I also decided to pre-order the 30th anniversary edition PlayStation Portal, because I do not have a Portal yet. And that box packaging and that gray color scheme is just too beautiful. It's too clean, man. It looks so good. So
yeah,
that's what I ordered.
Need that.
I want to know. Well, I know what you ordered,
or not the Portal. I don't have anything ordered yet, but I want to get the controller.
The regular controller.
Just the regular controller.
So
I mean,
why
that
did
is
you
all
not
I can
get the regular controller yesterday?
I just thought I would do it through Amazon, and I have a card with them, and it gives me 3 to 4% back on every purchase, and just free
But
shipping.
now you're out in the lurch waiting.
I am, but I'm not pressed about it. I feel like it'll just come back in stock, and
I feel like the regular DualSense is going to be a fairly achievable item to get.
Yes, I do too. I'm not really that worried about it. Like, do I want one? Yes, and I haven't acquired one yet, but I feel like it'll be there, because I also worked at GameStop when they did the previous anniversary, the 20th, and we had a lot of those DualShock controllers for a long time. The ones that they made with the same color scheme, basically. Those were never rare, so there's not much reason for me to think they'll be rare this time around, assuming they do a similar thing here. It's been 10 years, so maybe they'll be completely different, but they've if there's one thing that Sony has done this gen, it's not skimp on the controllers. You can usually get the controllers if you want them.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. I'm kind of tempted by it, but I definitely went Portal. Was my thought process. That felt like the more unique thing to get. I'm excited about it all around. It's interesting that the 30th anniversary stuff is 2-3 weeks after the PS5 Pro. Little interesting there that there's a gap, a wait for that. I did want to ask you, before we jumped into our top 10s, obviously your job, you're a staff writer over at comicbook.com, you review hardware. You've actually reviewed quite a bit of PlayStation hardware this generation, from the earbuds. I believe, did you review the Portal too? You reviewed the Portal?
Yeah, I reviewed the Portal. Yes.
Edge and the Edge, right?
Yep. And
yeah. So you've been doing a lot of Sony stuff. So you even mentioned it a little bit earlier. Feels like you might get a PS5 Pro for work to review, which is great.
So.
I'm curious though, job aside, are you interested in the Pro? Like, if you were an outside regular consumer like myself, is this something you'd be pursuing at launch now that you have the big, nice, modern TV? You did this with the PS4 Pro and a 4K TV and God of War. How do you feel about the Pro the PS5 Pro from a consumer's perspective?
Yeah, I totally want it. I just like shiny new hardware and toys, and I don't think that there's much reason to get one. Like, I know you talked about, Digital Foundry sold you on it. The thing for me is still just that I don't even think developers are ready to fully take advantage of something like this yet, because I feel like they're still not even fully taking advantage of the PS5 in some ways. Depending on the game, obviously, that's not true across the board, but Call of Duty is still releasing on PS4 this year. We're still not even fully unshackled from last gen yet, and now we've got a new console in here that they're trying to push, and I want it just because I like to have the newest thing, the hottest thing. The TV, me having a top-of-the-line TV that has just come out within, the past 12 months, does have me... I mean, when I say top-of-the-line, obviously there's a lot better ones out there that are far, far more expensive.
TV with modern gaming specifications.
I can take advantage of everything that the Pro has, yes. So I definitely want it because of that. I think a lot of, I was saying this on another podcast the other day, but like, so for the amount of complaints that there's been about the Pro, I'm going to guess that 75% of the people complaining probably don't even have great TVs to take advantage of what it could do in the first place. Like, you know, like I saw the other day that Resident Evil Village is going to be at 120 FPS on this, which is really cool. Vast majority of TVs still do not have, or vast majority of people playing on TVs, I should say, probably still do not even have refresh rates that go that high. Like you have to, you could go buy a pretty nice 4K TV right now, and it would maybe not even have that in it.
Yeah,
it just depends on what you're getting. You have to like specifically go out of your way to make sure you are getting these things that the console can do. So I have a TV that can do that. So yeah, I'm excited in that regard. Would I buy one myself? I don't really have $700 right now. The price is a huge deterrent. If it was just me trying to go buy one, it would be difficult, I feel like right now.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I have stuff I'm selling for the Pro and the Portal. Like, I'm not just flush with cash for this, but seeing the graphical gains and performance gains really made me go, that is what I want, because there's nothing more this generation that I haven't liked doing than picking between performance mode and fidelity mode. And like in a game, it's like, well, gosh, I want it to look as, you know, high res, clean and crisp as possible. But I really, at the very least, want a stable frame rate. Like a locked, I'll take a locked 30 over an unlocked 45, 60, you know, like stability is key. And this just is clearly providing a promise of 60 and higher fidelity. What's really funny is in all of these, the press just got hands-on with the PS5 Pro, I think because of TGS and things like that, and some North American press also got their hands on it. It just sounds like we're getting more modes. It's not like now there's one mode that does everything. It sounds like developers have Fidelity Pro, Performance Pro. So we're just going deeper into this, closer to a PC market in that sense of like different range of settings and visuals. But instead of obviously tweaking all the PC settings, you just pick from a menu of 4 to 6 options. Or if you're Insomniac, I suppose 8 to 10. I'm excited to see all that play out and to have just, you know, prettier consoles. And ideally keep my original PS5 as well so that I have 2. So, you know, one can be inside the house, one could be out here in the office, and kind of just have the PS5 everywhere in the house, which would be nice. Switch dock inside, switch dock out here, PS5 inside, PS5 out here. Play my games everywhere. Just like what Phil Spencer wants me to do, just not with his console.
Yeah, I'm very excited to go hands-on with this. Like, seeing people in the press go hands-on with it this week, I was like, I would really like to get a hold of this and play it at home. So I'm really crossing my fingers that we get one, and then I can put it through its paces and download Alan Wake 2 on it, like I said, and see how that goes. And hopefully some of these patches are obviously out in time for whenever I would check something like that out. But
I imagine whatever they're promoting will have patches ready for review cycle stuff, I would assume. Would be my thought. Who knows?
Hopefully. Fingers crossed. They got to have these patches ready to go, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, the console's out in just over a month.
That's weird. It's weird we're in October.
Pretty much. So, all right. It's time to go back to 2016, July 4th. July 3rd was when we recorded it, but July 4th when it came out. So, a very American episode. Our top 10 favorite games of all time. So this is what I had in mind for this evening. First, to go back just really quick and say the embarrassing things that we said were our top 10 games at the time, and maybe just react to that a little bit.
Are you embarrassed by yours?
I'm embarrassed by a particular something that I've noticed. I'm embarrassed by, but the games themselves are all very good games.
Okay,
but then maybe kind of go, alternate back and forth round robin style through our current list was kind of what I thought.
Okay, yep, that's exactly what we did last time around.
Yep. So 8 years ago, I said that my top 10 favorite games of all time were, my honorable mentions really quick was Dead Space, which obviously the remake wasn't even a thing. So it was just OG Dead Space, Destiny, and Sly Cooper 2. Those were honorable mentions. And then 10-1 was Hotline Miami, Journey, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Inside, which I believe came out like 2 weeks prior to this list.
Yeah, it was very recent. I don't even think we had talked about it.
Yeah, like we haven't even talked on the show about it. Yeah.
And then you're just coming in like, this is a top 10 game ever. And I was like, what?
The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker HD, specifically. Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. I don't even think that was ported over to PS4 yet at the time. Shovel Knight, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, The Last of Us, and Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. So those were my top 10, 13 games of all time. What were yours? Because I don't remember it all.
Yeah, so mine were, I don't remember what my honorable mentions were. But my number 10 was Spider-Man 2, the movie tie-in game.
Not 9, Marvel Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, not Marvel Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2, the movie game from like 2004. Number 9 was Smash Bros. Brawl. Pre-Ultimate World that we were living in there. Although Brawl, I mean, at the time, if Brawl sounds weird, that's just the one I played the most with my friends. That's the one I have the fondest memories out of. And the hype cycle.
Unprecedented hype cycle, yeah. Unprecedented.
Yeah. Yes. 8 was Banjo-Kazooie. 7, The Last of Us. 6, Batman Arkham City. 5 was Mass Effect 2. 4 was Metal Gear Solid 3. 3 was Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. 2 was BioShock. And then 1 was Ocarina of Time.
I don't remember this list at all, but
I also have just realized that I have screwed something up here, and I'm going to have to tweak my current list on the fly. But I think I know how I will.
Okay.
Yeah, I know how I will.
All right. So what I'm going to say is about my list. There are very max games on there, obviously. Shovel Knight, Kingdom Hearts, Birth by Sleep, those types of things. But it's also clearly not only was I just picking like some favorites, I was also trying to pick what I considered the best games of all time. And I think that I blurred the distinction between favorite and best. And like this list is not...
I'm glad we're starting with this as a talking point, because I wanted to bring this exact thing up.
Okay, because I noticed that and I'm like, I mean, to be frank, I think only two games from that original list are even on the list that I'm going to bring up tonight. And I think part of that is I was at the time trying to present myself as also like, I play the best games of all time, very prestigious. And it makes me a little, that's what I'm talking about, an embarrassment. Like,
I wouldn't say that looking at your list.
I think some of them, I think Journey, I've listened to the beginning of the episode, like Journey, I threw on, I was like, I can't believe I didn't mention this. I've played Journey once, and that's a game that I would struggle to go back and replay, I think, because of just how I felt at the time with the game, and just kind of, it's not a game I'd replay. Mm-hmm. But is Journey my favorite? No, but I put it there because I think it's one of the best. You get what I'm saying?
there's so many different like nuanced ways that you can slot games in on a list like this, because it's like, well, I objectively think this is the best game of the bunch, but then there's like, this is the best experience I've had with a game. But a best experience, like you mentioned with Journey, you can have a very fond, memorable experience or time with a game that maybe you don't have a same, you know, like Journey, great game, great experience, but how does that match up against my experience of, you know, playing Smash Bros. Brawl every weekend in my friend's basement throughout high school? So it's like they're two totally different things, and it's like, what do you have more fondness for? What do you prioritize higher when making a list like this? And I tried to this time like really try to hone in on like, what do I like the most, and like really
same
check like myself and my feelings. And
I'm glad, because we didn't talk about like our process of going through this journey beforehand. So I'm glad that we're both on the same page, because I really, when writing this list down, really thought about what is my favorite, personally me, not what do I think is the best.
Well, and I think the other big thing for me when looking back at my list, my previous list was really comprised of, and I don't think this is a bad thing whatsoever, but they're games that I played and then I said, that's one of my favorite games ever. And then like I forever locked them into certain spots. Like Ocarina of Time is my favorite game ever. That'll always be
default
the case.
Answer.
Yes. And like, you know, that might still be the case actually. But like, I really tried to like, you know, have a conversation with myself of like, okay, why do I always default to like saying this is my favorite game? And like, what's my feeling around that game now? And like, is that still like, I don't know, have those sort of conversations with myself.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, well, good. I'm glad we agree. So before I get started, I had two things I wanted to say just about my list, which is this time around, I did one game in a series or
from a developer.
Yeah, or from a developer. And so I hold to that here I do hold to that, but I tried not to double up. I didn't want a Last of Us Uncharted situation, or there's nothing else really on my list that was like that. I really just wanted to avoid basically having two Naughty Dog games toward the top of my list.
My top 10 is Uncharted 1, Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3, Uncharted 4.
I think more specifically, I was trying to avoid putting The Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2 on the list. I wanted to force myself to pick a favorite child. So I did do that in my list. And then I just completely failed to like put these in an actual ranking order, and I just have them in alphabetical order. But you actually did your homework correctly.
I did rank them. If you want to try to rank them on the fly, you can.
I can't.
Or if that's
I
too
can't
hard
even do it. I'm looking at the list and my brain can't even process it like that. It's just.
Do you not have my list? I would say I had a group of about 5 to 6 that I immediately knew was like above the other group. So I was like, okay, this is back half of the list for sure.
Sure,
still love these games. I could still top 10.
Sure, yeah.
But it's like the top 3 or 4 where they're like all interbattling with one another. I'm like, I don't know. Like we're splitting hairs at this point.
Yeah. No, I don't have like a solid, but like, yeah, like I know roughly like these are closer to the top, these are close to the bottom.
Do you want to do, actually, let's do honorable mentions after, because if we do it before, I think it'll give away
sure, yeah,
some things that you're
the honorable
thinking
mentions at the end
that you and I might think are on each other's lists. So
okay, well, can I just say one game I really struggled to not put on my list? I was so sad I couldn't put it on there. Concord. What a time, man.
Concord. Those 2 weeks will live forever.
I wrote it down on the list. I wrote Concord. I'm a genius. Okay. All right, I'm gonna start. Do you want me to start at the front of the alphabet or the back of the alphabet? I'll let you choose.
Just choose whatever you would like.
I'm going to do the back of the alphabet because I think it makes for a more interesting conversation.
Or you could go in a way that, like, if you have repeats from last time and you just want to get them out of the way, that they're on it again, then you could do that. Or if you want to, you do whatever you want. Do any sort of.
Here we go. It's the back of the alphabet, and it's one of the 2 games from last time's list. So 2 birds. Is it
Inside?
No. It is The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker.
Interesting. Okay.
When thinking about this one, it was this or Breath of the Wild, and I'm currently playing Tears of the Kingdom, but it was this or Breath of the Wild, right? And Breath of the Wild is great. It's a transformative game, not only for Zelda, but for the industry. And I think that's been pretty well documented over the course of its 7 years. But when I think back to it, really, it's the nostalgia pick. There's nothing like being a 12, 13-year-old and sailing on the great sea and just discovering things with the music and the sail and everything. So that's why I kept Wind Waker here instead of Breath of the Wild. Now, Wind Waker HD or the eventual HD port that will be brought to Switch or Switch 2. Who cares? I think the original game now, I would prefer that visually. There's just some interesting visual effects, bugs, or whatever in the HD version. But the gameplay improvements, of course, in the Wii U remake are more delightful, like the Swift Sail or the sped up Triforce Quest. And so, rest in peace Miiverse integration, but that was awesome. But the GameCube has the Tingle tuners, so like, where do you fall? I'm just saying the Wind Waker, and whatever way you can play that, go with the Wind Waker. But The Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker, it's still on my list.
I have been wanting to replay both that and specifically Twilight Princess for so long.
The Switch, man.
I mean, this is, real-time discussion about this, but I really do want to do our Zelda season of our little program, our little podcast at some point. I know that'd be an undertaking, but I feel like we've talked before about like ending that show. I think we've both said in the past, like, we can't end it until we do the Zelda season eventually, and Zelda then we can put it to rest.
Yeah, Zelda would be a beefy boy, but it'd be fun.
It'd be very fun. I just want to have a reason to go back and play those things. And it's hard to justify it sometimes between, trying to play things for our show and then day job, and then I'm trying to squeeze
personal
things in there that I want to play at the same time. I'm still trying to make sure that I play Red Dead 2 before Dead Rising. Dead Rising was a mix of both. I wanted to play and I reviewed it. So.
Oh, you did review it.
Little column A, little column B. I did. But like Red Dead 2, still haven't played. Need to play it. Kills me that I haven't played it.
Yeehaw!
I knocked out Elden Ring at least this year, so that's something.
I was waiting for you to play Elden
Ring. My number 10 is, mentioned it before, Super Smash Brothers Brawl. I could not delete this. It fell from 9. It fell from 9 to 10. But at the end of the day, like, I really was thinking about it. I'm like, Smash is so part of why I love games, and I have to have a Smash representative on this list in some capacity. And I considered Ultimate, and I thought about Ultimate. I have fond memories of Ultimate 2 with our little, tournament we did in tandem with when that came out.
Swamp 2, where is it?
We gotta have Swamp 2 at some point. That was so fun. I love that. That was a fantastic little party weekend there that we had for that game. I thought about putting that one on here, but at the end of the day, it really is. Brawl is the one I have the most fond memories of growing up playing with my friends. It's one of my favorite party / multiplayer games ever. I still love it so much, and Smash is one of the best franchises ever. I'm so curious to see what they do with it next, inevitably, because that they can't put it to rest. So.
Smash Ultimate Plus Super Edition, something. So Smash Ultimate Deluxe, probably. It'll come to Switch 2.
They'll probably just port it to Switch 2. I mean, well, but Switch I guess 2... it'll just be forward compatible, but
yeah,
like they'll do something to like make you buy another SKU of that game. Like, oh, hey,
yeah, Smash never dies.
Upgraded for this hardware somehow. I don't know. Whatever.
Nintendo will sell us some Moho. All right. Next in the alphabet, another game that starts with the word The Last of Us Part
2. Okay, so this is... Can you confirm this is the Naughty Dog representative?
Yes. This is the Naughty Dog representative. Sorry, Uncharted.
Nathan Drake over here. You could have done an Uncharted and
Last
of Us. Those are different enough.
Myself. They are, but I wanted to restrict myself. I wanted to be tame. If there was an Uncharted representative, it would have been 4. So there you go.
So let me ask this. Obviously, I know your praise points of this game, but let me dig into this a bit more.
Yes.
Why does this stand out compared to, especially the first game? Because I think even you'll agree that cohesively, the first game is a better start to finish, complete package. Just boom, that's the game.
Yeah,
that's if you were ever
part 2.
Yeah, if you were ever to show anybody a single game Naughty Dog has ever made, I think even you would agree.
You don't start
the first
with
Last of Us.
Yeah,
I know you don't start with part 2, but obviously the story, it being a sequel and tying so heavily into the events of the first game, I know play a part. But even its structure, this game structurally is so different from the first game.
Yeah, and different from most games. I think that's actually why, though, it stands out to me. But this leans back into the favorite side. Do I think this is the best game Naughty Dog's made? Yes, it's the best looking. I think it has the most interesting and engaging narrative they've done. I think the gameplay is peak here. This game's stealth, so good. It is an immersive Metal Gear Solid 3 like. You're crouching, you're dodging, you're running around. The way the AI communicates, it's all there. The spectacle, they integrated those Uncharted set pieces. We've talked about this before at length. I've talked about this ad nauseum. But when I think back to this game, it is also wrapped up in the personal stuff. Not only getting the game 3 days early and playing it from a mom and pop shop in total seclusion because I was furloughed from work and just could actually just play a game. I didn't have to do anything.
COVID, baby.
COVID, yeah.
Dude, I have COVID jealousy in retrospect. I think about this a lot. Because people now are just I wish we could go back to 2020 when all I did was play games. I'm like, dude, I was still working. I never got any time off. It was just another year. Yeah. Another year but I stayed inside a little more than normal.
Yeah. The furlough from Disney I talk about is the last summer vacation I'll ever have, because I was still being financially provided for, but I didn't I didn't actually have to work for anything. So it is truly like that. And this is a part of that story. This was a high point in a very stressful front half of a year. So this game was very satisfying. Obviously chasing the stick and digging deep into the story development of this game. And then I'm surrounded by The Last of Us art, but also the way this game was talked about and revealed, the whole twist of the game, not the certain character deaths that take place, but the mechanical twist, which I think is just on par with something of a Kojima and is rarely attempted in the AAA space, right? It was a bold move, and it's not one that happens often. So I think all of that wrapped up into the game is why it becomes my Naughty Dog representative, as you so put it. I think that's a good way to phrase that as well.
Not to, dig too deep here. I know you didn't number your list, but gun to your head, is this the one where you think you put it number 1, just off the top of your head? Is that what
out of this list, it's certainly in the top 3. Top 2, it could be number 1. Okay. I could be persuaded. It's definitely in that upper echelon. Gun to my head, pipe to my head in the basement of a hospital, breathing in spores. Yeah.
Okay. This next one's hard for me. This is the one where I think I'm going to swap something.
The hot swap.
I'm debating here, and I'll say what I think it's being swapped for, and it's going to be a little surprising, I think. But I'll say this too. My list that I am doing here is very much off of how I feel right now. Obviously, I mean,
duh.
And
That's
my feelings on certain things have changed over the past 8 years. 8 years ago, I was still hyper into Star Wars. Now, pretty much dead to me.
Get it out of here.
Pretty much dead to me.
Goodbye.
And that doesn't. And KOTOR was number 3 on my previous list. And I had it here at 9. But what I think I'm really going to swap it for is Soul Silver and Heart Gold. Because I think after doing our whole Pokemon season, those games mean a lot to me. Like, they have been around my entire life. I have played them my entire life. I have still enjoyed them just as much now when we played through them for our show as I did when I was a kid. And out of those, I think, Soul Silver is just the obvious one that everybody goes to. It's a fantastic game in its own right. But just it being lengthier than all the other Pokemon games and the way it ties in with the first one and just all those things. It's the obvious choice as the best Pokemon game. And I think it gets that title for the right reasons. So I think I have to put that here because Pokemon really is just so integral to every chapter of my life, I think. Far more than KOTOR. I've played KOTOR once in my life. I loved it. I think Knights of the Old Republic really is the best example of the whole, like, Renegade and Paragon thing from the early 2000s there that all the RPGs did, where it's like, you can be evil or you can be good. But, like, Star Wars thematically already does that. So it is the best example of doing something like that, where, like, okay, if you go down the evil route, you're going to be able to get these powers and you'll have Force Lightning and you'll be able to choke people. But if you do this, then you'll be able to have certain Jedi abilities and stuff like that, compared to, something like Infamous, where it's like, if you're evil, your lightning is red instead. And it's just like, okay. So I think KOTOR really is still the peak of those type of RPGs from the early 2000s. I think it still tells one of the best Star Wars stories ever. I think it needs to be like what the future of Star Wars is. I wish they would tap into that more. Or maybe I don't, because they're dropping the ball so hard. So maybe just leave this alone, actually, the more I think about it.
Don't touch
but
my baby.
with all of that said, I am going to punt KOTOR off of my top 10. And I'm going to put Soul Silver on here. And it's mainly just because I have played it one time when I was 12, maybe. And that's it. So, yeah, it's going to go.
So alphabetically, my next one is the one that it doesn't feel right. So I'm going to save it, I guess, maybe for the end and have a roundabout discussion with things. So I'm going to skip this next one, and I'm going to go to, speaking of our podcast, the Resident Evil 3 remake.
Interesting.
That game is so much fun. It is so short. It being short is a big fat plus, man. That game, you can rip through it. Getting the platinum was one of the most fun things I had, the year that I played it, just over and over, getting to the point where I could be a goofball with unlimited rocket launcher ammo, shooting Nemesis in the face, to the first time playing, being super stressed while Nemesis would show up and bounce around. Jill Valentine for the win. Great game, one that I would love to get a VR treatment someday. Capcom, please. Bring Jill back, really. Jill, especially after 5. Like, just let's bring Jill back.
She's blonde now.
Let's give Jill the respect she deserves. But I really also love it as a send-off to Raccoon City, and I think it encapsulates like this fun action side while starting as a horror game and then turns into an action romp. I love it. I love actually a lot of the Resident Evil games now, which were games I had never played before when we did this list the first time. Zero I could, consider, or Code Veronica. Like, that tie, those 3 games right there, those would be the ones that I look to the most in Resident Evil. But I'm going to throw that remake on there. And now on the PS5 versions of the game, you can play it like 60 FPS, buttered smooth, just beautiful with ray tracing. Really nice. It's great. It's good stuff.
I'm going to interject this now. I was going to wait. This was the hardest thing for me with my top 10, is that upon, re-examining my favorite games and franchises and things like that, I think I have come to the conclusion that Resident Evil is my favorite franchise of all time.
Oh.
And with that being said, I do not have a single representative from Resident Evil in my top 10. It is just, I think, the most consistently fun franchise.
Sure.
That all intertwines so well with one another. But I don't think there is any one game that has a high that I would compare to some of the highs on my list. And so that's what
you're saying
is keeping
the
it
end of Resident Evil 6 where Troy Baker tosses an apple isn't your
That's pretty good.
10 out of 10.
That's pretty good. I think I said last year during our episode that I think 4 Remake is my favorite. So 4 Remake is the one I was debating putting on here. And when push came to shove, I just couldn't.
That's a great version, too, because not only can you play it the original way, but you can play it as God intended in VR as well. So it's a good version to pick.
It's part of why it didn't make it on my list is because of my number 8, though. Because here's something I decided to slide on instead upon thinking about things this afternoon. My number 8 is Alan Wake 2, which I don't think is that surprising after how I talked about it last year.
No.
But this is really this is what I'm talking about. Resident Evil, there is no single culmination point where it's oh yes, finally, this is what we've been waiting for. They're all 5 is kind of that, but 5 is also very bad in some areas, and so
sure,
that
5
drags it
that,
down.
And 6 even more so to a degree, has that moment, right? Of here's Leon and Chris and Claire, but it doesn't earn it because it takes so flippin' long to get there, and that game has a lot of problems. So I get what you're saying there. They have it, it's just hard to get to.
Yeah, Alan Wake is the total opposite, where it feels like it earns everything that has built up to it and is put in it. And I really think that this, I'll say this, or actually I won't say this. We'll keep things going, and I'll talk about this later. I just think this is one of the best third-person, narrative-driven action games ever. I think this is on par with The Last of Us. I really do. I think that it is that good. And then it's bona fides as a horror game. I think it's a top-tier survival horror game. Just everything about this. I love it. I think this is Remedy's best game. Remedy's always been one of my favorite studios. I had to get some representation from them on this list. Yeah. Alan Wake 2, number 8.
I'm very excited to get my copy here in October. I said that I wanted a physical copy of Alan Wake 2, and I want to support that now that they're doing it. They finally are putting it out, and it has all of the DLC, including the lake house, apparently. It's my understanding, at least, on the disc. I'll have to double-check that, I guess. At least the other DLC is on there for sure. So I'm very excited about that. Alan Wake 2, the conversation surrounding it has made me the most tempted to play the Remedy games, which we have talked about doing a specific season on, but sometimes I'm maybe I should just play them, and if we do a season, I'll just come back to it. Because the sound of Alan Wake altogether, and then you throw in Quantum Break and Control, which I infamously have problems with from PAX 2019, but all of those things, and Max Payne on some level, all tying that together. Alan Wake 2 sounds like my kind of game, and I want the idea of this interconnected world of games from Sam Lake, who I think, as far as I understand, can be said in the same breath as someone like a Kojima, as far as just wacky, zany, really world-building narrative kind of stuff in a great way. I'm excited to play Alan Wake 2 someday. Very eager. So yeah, I could totally see that. And apparently there's a musical in it, so.
There it is. It's so
so good. I'm excited for you to get into those games eventually here. Hopefully to play them alongside of you whenever that happens. And it's like, again, talking about franchises, and that's kind of where I started here, trying to look at my list this time. Like, okay, what are the big franchises I like, and then what are the single games I would pull from them? And this was just the obvious one for me. So
I like it. All right, buddy. You just picked a game that I haven't played. It's time for me to pick a game that you haven't played. Red Dead Redemption 2, baby. It should have won Game of the Year. Jeff Keighley. Get out of here, Kratos. Get out of here, Kratos.
The God of War.
Red Dead's better. Especially in a post-Ragnarok world. Retroactively, even better. Red Dead Redemption 2. We will never get a game like this from Rockstar again. It is a huge, massive, open-world game dedicated down to the tiniest of details to capture this era of the West, right? From the biggest studio in the world, certainly from a financial perspective. And yet it is a game about quiet moments and characters who you truly and deeply care about over the course of the journey. And that is just, it feels like an oxymoron almost. Like, Red Dead Redemption 2 should not exist the way it does, but it is what it is. And I love it for that. I also worked on the game's guide, which I had a very unique perspective of and time with and experience with, so there's a little bit of personal tie to that. But the ride of Red Dead, and it just looks so good, man. It's so stupid beautiful. It is. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a good game.
You're saying it's something you feel like shouldn't exist, and it's really just what a studio of, I don't know how many people Rockstar has working at it. I mean, they've got like 7 or 8 locations, something crazy like that.
Yeah.
It's really what a team that large with literally endless money and resources and time can do. And that's why I think that the excitement is so much there for GTA 6 as well, because they are the one studio in the industry that really, it seems like, gets to determine their timelines to some
They're their
degree.
own boss. But I feel like you have to think back, though. Red Dead 2 was greenlit and began work on while GTA 5 was still like in development and being released. Like, Red Dead 2 was the next step. But the scope of what GTA Online would become, I don't even think Rockstar and 2K like anticipated the kind of money that mode would print. And I think if that had been a known quantity up front, I think Red Dead 2 would look a lot different. I think Red Dead Online would be a lot different and actually may have been a bit more viable, because like Red Dead 2 Online I think is over. I think support is over, or they've announced the end of it.
They still update it like annual or monthly with like new, like, I don't know, they add like new quests or things like that, but like
GTA
it's not
Online
like
is
it's
from
not
2013 and it's still going. You know what I mean?
they don't update it in the sense of like, here's the new patch notes or whatever. It's just like, here's what is happening this month in the game.
Sure.
You can do
get some gold
these
bars
tasks and there's these promotions and that sort of thing. Yeah.
But now we're in a post GTA Online world, and we're in a world where GTA 6 will be coming out next year, presumably on time. I feel like Red Dead 3, which shouldn't probably be a thing. Like, is whatever's next for Rockstar. You know, that's why it feels like it shouldn't exist. Like, it actually came out at the perfect time before GTA Online would have, I think, corrupted feels too strong of a word, but like, changed the direction of everything. I feel like there's a reason the Housers left.
Okay. Only
feel like
one
this
of them
is
left, though, right?
one left
Dan,
at the very
Dan
least. I
was
think
the
one
that
of them
left.
is still there.
Pretty sure
I
Dan
feel
has
like
left.
this is kind of a part of it.
Huh. Interesting.
Red Dead 2.
Yeah, I mean, I said it before. I obviously can't speak to this game. I have played like 10 hours of this game, so it's not like I've never touched it. But I haven't seen it through, and it is the one game that I want to see through. And so yeah, we'll see if maybe at the end of it I would feel the same way about it as you do. Yeah, I don't know. It's a slow burn.
Very slow burn. I'll say this, Rockstar, can we please get a sweet 60 FPS patch? Please?
This is why I keep holding out partially, because I feel like the moment I play it, immediately afterwards, they'll be like, oh, actually, here's this. And I'm like, well, this sucks. You're telling me I could have played this on a Pro and had all these bells and whistles. Yeah. And
if you do play it before that, play it on Xbox. That's at least does output at a native 4K because of the 1X version. I was in a GameStop the other day, totally forgot that they brought Red Dead Redemption 1 to like PS4 alongside this. I knew it was on Switch, but I forgot they brought it to PS4.
But they didn't upgrade that thing even a hair. It's just a straight port, I think. They're just like, oh, hey, here it is.
At least that's better than the GTA Trilogy package. So,
yeah, but like, I don't know. It's almost more.
I think there has been a patch since that has opened up the frame rate on that.
I think so. I think you're right. It's just, again, it's
not
like
what you would have wanted.
Rockstar has all these resources at their disposal, and they're like, let's remaster these 3 GTA games, but let's pass it off to this other studio to do. That's what I'm saying. It's like they have the resources and the talent within to churn up a little small team to work on these sorts of things. That is how deep they are. And I know, like I just said, that they're all clearly working on GTA 6 and still supporting GTA 5. But they could have also done this stuff in-house, I think. They could have pushed out some improvements for the original Red Dead and the GTA trilogy, but they didn't for some reason. So, I don't know.
What do you have next? Yeah, what do you have next, buddy?
Number 7 for me. Banjo-Kazooie has died, and in its place is Super Mario Odyssey.
I was wondering if this game would show up.
Yeah, I think the reason I was comfortable booting Banjo off. I have a lot of fondness for Banjo, and I love that series. But Odyssey really is the culmination of a lot of the same ideas that I like about Banjo in the first place. The more sort of open-endedness of the level structure, and just, here's this level and go find your moons, have fun. And there's key points for you to interact with. And, but other than that, it's just kind of left up to you where you want to tackle everything in, which is a far cry from the structure of a lot of the previous Mario games, where it is, you're going to this one specific level to get this one specific star this time around, and you can't get anything else. Or I guess there's like secret stars or secret shines in some of the other games, but more often than not, you are playing a specific level with a specific purpose. And I just think this structure here with Odyssey works way better. Cappy rules. The Cappy mechanics are great. Taking everything over, great. Love it. So much charm, so much style. Best Mario platformer ever. 3D Mario platformer ever. Or 2D too, I guess. I don't really like the 2D ones as well, though. So that's just my opinion on that. But yeah, best Mario game ever, for sure. This, I will say, this is the number one reason why I'm excited about Switch 2. My Switch 2 hype is like, just for the hardware alone, like a 2. I really don't care. I just feel like we know what it's going to be. Like, oh, it's the Switch again. And Super it has Switch. Better internals. Hooray. Knowing that a new Mario game will probably launch with that console, and it will be the follow-up to Odyssey, is what really has me excited about the Switch 2. I'm not saying it will be Odyssey 2, but they will be building off of what they learned with that game.
Bowser's Fury.
Kind of, I guess. They definitely did something there.
It's a very interesting fusion of things. But you can't forget Bowser's Fury. That's technically the last 3D Mario game.
It's true, I guess. Yeah. That's a good game too, though. I really like it.
It's a very good game. Similar ideas, but also new ideas, but also old ideas, but also all sorts of ideas. What if you were a cat fighting Godzilla?
What if you were Bowser with a mustache?
It's a very good game. Yeah, I like Super Mario Odyssey a lot. I would like to play it again, but I also, I don't know, feel like it needs to be the right time for it.
I don't feel like it's that long. Like you could beat it in a week probably.
I don't know, but then I sit there and think there's 900 of those things.
Yeah. And it is actually really fun to do a completionist run of that game, I will say. It is quite enjoyable.
It's good stuff. All right. Next. This one is a series I wanted to have some representation this time around, and I went back and forth on which game to include. But I decided to be a purist in the sense of just picking one game instead of one of the games that's like a bundle that includes this and other ones. And I decided to go with my gut. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trials and Tribulations.
Fascinating. I mean, I know this is one of your favorite series.
Yes. One of my favorite series. It's a point-and-click lawyer defense adventure game. Very unique conceptually in that way of like you're a lawyer defending people. Like it works. And it's a series that is getting a lot of love right now from Capcom, alongside all the other series they're giving good love to. Currently, every Phoenix Wright game is available on modern hardware. It's a sentence I never thought would be able to be uttered, including the Investigations games. Finally, the sequel translated to English. It is a great, wonderful series full of charming characters, wonderful stories and revelations, and engaging gameplay. But really, they are stories for the most part. And I love, one of my favorite board games is Clue. I love a good murder mystery, and these games are full of murder mysteries.
I watched that movie for the first time the other night, just to throw that out there. Never had seen it before.
Yeah, I've seen it a couple of times. You watch the alternate endings?
Yeah, they played them all in succession.
Would you watch it digitally?
Yes.
Okay, that might be a thing they do. I remember as a kid, you could go in the menu and you pick like the different endings on the DVD version.
Pick which version? There's only 3. Was there only 3?
Something like that. Yeah, like it's just different killers. Yeah. It's fun. It's cute. It's an interesting thing for the time. It's a fun movie. So yeah, I like murder mysteries. And so Trials and Tribulations is the third game in the series. And what's special about it is it has all of the Max trappings. There's a little prequel energy to it. And all of the cases weave together in the culmination of the final case. So everything comes together instead of certain things being standoff or alone or whatnot. So I really like that. Really, out of all the remaining games, I feel like the only one that has come close to capturing this is the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, which are the ye old Herlock Sholmes inspired versions of the games, where both of those games go together to an ultimate.
Did you say Herlock Sholmes?
Yes. Instead of Sherlock Holmes, it's Sherlock.
I didn't know if you said that intentionally or
intentionally.
If you were having a stroke or what was going on.
No, the world's greatest detective.
Okay.
Sherlock Holmes. No, Herlock Sholmes. It's very great. That game is 2 games. You have to play them together though, because of the way they are truly intimately tied together. Like just pick up right where the last one left off, type of thing. But I chose Trials and Tribulations because it is contained enough where you can play just the one game and get everything you need out of it. You don't need 2. And I love me some got it and the coffee. I love Phoenix Wright. I wanted some representation around, and Trials and Tribulations does stand the test of time. I've played it fairly recently, and I love it.
You've talked about these games enough to where I would like to check them out at some point.
You should.
And obviously I can easily now.
You can even play them on PlayStation.
Yeah, on the Portal.
Get trophies. You could.
Perfect
the
Portal game
would be good.
There you go. Right there.
But you wouldn't have touch controls. The Switch, you would have touch controls.
Does that matter? Or I guess these are old DS games, so...
No, the first three are actually Game Boy Advance games that were then ported to the DS.
Interesting.
They're Japanese Game Boy Advance games.
I think I knew that they had their roots on Game Boy, but...
You could also... It's one of the most ported series when you actually look at its history, because it's also WiiWare. There's a WiiWare releases. There's mobile releases. There's DS, 3DS, Game Boy Advance. I don't know if they came to the Wii U digitally.
So you have 2 Capcom reps on your list so far. I'm starting to realize.
Oh, I guess I do feel like Resident Evil and Phoenix.
Oh, I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no,
I didn't think about it as much at a publisher level. I know these games are internally developed.
There's no more Capcom on my list, so.
But I'm just saying. I guess in my mind now, I'm like, man, you're a far larger fan of Capcom than I guess I would have, pegged you for.
Well, it's so funny because at the time I had played the 4 Phoenix Wright games. I don't think I had delved into the 3DS titles at that time. So I'd played the first 4. But for some reason I didn't put them on my list. They probably were on my DS generation list. So the Wii DS, they probably were in there. Okay. What's your number 5?
It's 6.
6.
We're really back and forth here with this and the next one. This is where it got a little difficult. We'll keep it how I have it here. Number 6 is Persona 5 Royal.
You want some pancakes?
Yeah, this is probably my favorite new franchise I've played the past few years. Or actually, I can't say that. One of them. I had never played a Persona game when we did our previous top 10. Had to have a representative of it here.
Isn't that crazy sentence to say?
Yeah. I think I had dabbled with it.
Probably dabbled with Golden.
Yeah, I had dabbled with Golden on my Vita, but I had never played it. And Persona 5 wasn't even out yet. So, came out in 2017. It came out in 2017.
It came out the same year as Breath of the Wild?
And you have that year is insane. That year is insane.
What?
Yeah.
I thought it was same.
I think it came
out. Persona 5 came out on the PS3. Now
I think it came out the same month as Breath of the Wild.
No. March?
Yeah.
No.
I am pretty darn sure. I mean, North American.
You have a better memory about this stuff than me.
North American release, at least. Worldwide, April 7th, 2017. So, yeah, pretty much.
Okay, but at least it
1 month
it was
apart.
in Japan in September. I'll take what I can get.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, this was really what contributed to punting KOTOR off my list. Is I think this is probably my favorite RPG ever now. Love the battle mechanics, love the turn-based stuff, love the story, love the characters, the music. I think this is probably my favorite video game soundtrack of all time, which, I feel like is a little overdone at this point with people praising Persona music, but I mean, it's that good for a reason. It's stellar. Mm-hmm. It's so good. Yeah, I adore Persona 5.
Persona 5 dancing, right?
Not dancing. not the boogie one.
Strikers?
Not Strikers. Not Persona 5 Strikers. Persona 5 Tactica. Strikers was actually quite good. I enjoyed that one. That Royal here, obviously that's the expanded version, so we put that. But yeah, I love this game. fantastic from start to finish. Great twists, great build up. And I think more than anything, just kind of cozy to sink into. Like I that's the thing that I've come to realize with the Persona games the longer I've played them, is there's so much talk anytime you're trying to get anybody into these games of like, oh, but it's 100 or 120 hours. It'll take me so long to beat. It's going to take me forever to finish this game. It's like, just enjoy the ride. Enjoy the moments where you're playing this game. Don't think about the ending. Nothing really explosive or all that crazy happens at the ending. It builds up to a final boss. You fight the final boss. You defeat the final boss. That's it.
All of those things happen.
And then the credits roll. And that's just kind of it. Enjoy the beat-to-beat character stuff and, you know, the process and the structure. Now I'm going to school, and then later today I'm going to do this activity, and I'm going to work on this social link, and just juggling all these balls at a single time. Like, that is what is fun about it. The social sim aspects of it, and just talking to the characters and getting to know different people and seeing these storylines that they set up. Those are the things that I really like about it. It's not this race to the end type thing. So yeah, Persona 5.
I like it. I will play Royal someday. I own it. I've beaten the base game, so one day I'll go back.
Chapter Select, Season 20.
God, no. Not Persona, please. Spare me.
But you can play the one where Hitler's in it.
2? Is that 2 or 1?
I think it's 2. I think it's the second 2.
Oh, 2.
2.
All right. Speaking of RPGs from Japan, the only other game from my list that has returned, Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, and we live in a blessed timeline now, where Paper Mario of the game is out.
Are you gonna say the remastered version is your favorite?
Dude, I don't care. Play whatever version you want.
Just play it.
I dabbled. I just had to see the graphics with my own eyes, kind of thing. The next time I play Thousand Year Door will, of course, be the Switch version. What can I say? We've done a podcast about this very game and series. Go listen to that for deeper thoughts. There's just charm, style, the music, the world, all of it. I love it. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door will always be a favorite game of mine. That's all I gotta say.
I agree with you. Completely agree with you. Please listen to Chapter Select. There's an episode about this.
With Scott White.
With Scott White, yeah. Go listen to it. It's a good episode. I think. I don't know. We did it like 4 years ago or 3 years ago at this point, I guess.
It's a good episode.
Go check it out. My number 5. I had to keep this on here. And really, what solidified me keeping this on here is a development within the past day. Metal Gear Solid 3. The new trailer for the remake looks exceptional.
All right,
I cannot wait for this remake.
I'm going to just jump in with you really quick. Metal Gear Solid 3 is also on my list. It's not next alphabetically, but it is after that. So let's just bunch this up.
Yeah.
I realized my last list, I didn't have a Metal Gear rep. That was a great sin. I forsake Kojima for some reason. Metal Gear Solid 3 is the best. Let's go.
It's still the best. It's still, I think what really helps this one and why I am able to put this on my top 10, I feel like it stands alone in so many ways. Like, yes, it does tie into the larger series, and there's all these crazy threads, and it's Kojima, and it's Metal Gear, and it's crazy story arcs, but it's the first one, and it's easier to understand, and obviously you can appreciate things if you played all the other games, but it really just feels singular compared to the others. And Metal Gear Solid 1 does as well. Actually, they all kind of do. But I think this one, I like the time period more. You're eating animals.
The survival aspect of the game is one of the more interesting and satisfying. And the camo, like just the way it stripped the Metal Gear series down, right? It got rid of the tech. You're in the jungle.
Yeah, it's a lot of those same mechanics. Again, like looking at the remake, because I did a deep dive on this yesterday and just kind of poured back through everything they've announced with the remake so far and shown off. And it just continues to really geek me up for that. And I hope they don't screw it up. I really hope they don't screw it up. But it just, I don't know. I don't think about Metal Gear much anymore because it's just more or less dead. It is kind of a dead franchise. I mean, in the sense that, you know, we're not going to get a Metal Gear 6, I don't think. Like,
hey, man, I played Metal Gear Survive.
I mean, yeah, that's like Metal Gear 5.1 or 5.2, or it's actually like in an alternate timeline. I don't know.
It's awesome.
It's dead. It's dead in the sense that, like, Konami does not seem to have any intention of doing anything with it other than, like, we're going to remaster these games and we're going to remake this game. And if the Metal Gear if the Snake Eater remake does well, you would imagine they'll then go remake the original Metal Gear Solid, which will be a far larger undertaking, but, like, I could see them doing that next. And then it feels like this is the series now. And because of that, I don't think about it as often as I used to, because it, you know, it used to be like, oh my gosh, Metal Gear Solid 4 is coming out. It looks so amazing. I'm so geeked up. And then there's the build up towards that. And then there was the build up towards 5.
Studios.
Yes, the Moby Dick Studios, the build up towards 5. And then, oh, well, actually, the Phantom Pain, we're going to first release this prologue thing, and then you can play that. And it's the opening of the game. And then the rest of the game will come out 18 months from now. And it's like, Kojima, what are you doing? And, like, these things are gone. And so I don't think about them much anymore. But Metal Gear still may be my favorite franchise ever. Even though I said
you just said earlier that Resident Evil is.
Said Resident Evil is earlier. I do think it is Resident Evil, but Metal Gear's probably 2, I would say. Still holds a very special place in my heart.
The thing that I love about saying Metal Gear Solid 3 and today is that people, again, do have access to it, and there's options. There was that whole delisting saga there for a hot minute because they didn't renew licenses for certain historical footage, that sort of thing. That was unfortunate. But the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection, Volume 1, has the HD port. That whole game itself, not the best port of things, which is a bummer. There is a new patch coming out actually soon.
That patch actually looks really good. They just released it on Steam, and they said the console versions are about to hit, and it looks like it really, really did improve.
I hope it does fix a lot. So you can play that version of it. You could, of course, dig up a 3DS to play the 3DS version of Metal Gear Solid 3, that staple classic, but also the upcoming remake Delta, which does look phenomenal and, again, hopefully isn't screwed up and does have original gameplay type modes or a new, more modern control scheme. It's Unreal Engine 5. It already has confirmed PS5 Pro support, which just, like, has me super giddy. So there's a lot of Metal Gear Solid 3 love.
That's what really sold me too. Like you asked earlier in the episode, like, how is anything sold you about the Pro? Do you want it? When I saw that appear in the montage trailer, I was like, oh, okay, we're so in. We're there.
Everyone out here is like, the reason to buy a PS5 Pro is Grand Theft Auto 6. And I'm like, guys, it's Death Stranding 2 on the beach, and now Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta. Those are the reasons to buy a PS5 Pro.
The Kojima twins right there.
Yeah, man. Oh my gosh. Death Stranding? Oh my goodness. It's gonna be
also, I did say that Metal Gear is dead, but Fizzant is out there. I mean, I don't know if that's not Metal Gear. We're not going to see Solid Snake in it, but
could you imagine if he brought David Hayter into Fizzant?
I hope he does.
But really he would just replace him with Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah, but I won't say anything. He didn't replace him.
I know. You've explained the lore reasons.
He didn't replace him. It was a totally different character. Play the game.
He did. Let's
play
just
the
be
game.
real.
Play the
he
game.
Did replace him. Naked Snake and Solid Snake aren't the same.
Yeah, they are. They're identical clones.
Not totally identical.
Basically. Okay, my number 4.
Liquid!
I really want to replay those games very badly.
I replayed them a couple years ago, and it is so good. The journey of and now that you have twin snakes,
That would be fun.
Twin Snakes is fun. Don't let people hate it.
I've never replayed 4 ever.
The last time I played was the first time I had replayed 4. And it was the first time I played it in HD. The first time I played Metal Gear Solid 4, I played it on my tube TV.
Ugh. I don't even think I did that. I definitely didn't do that one.
It's beautiful. Okay. It's a beautiful game.
My number 4. This is, in some sense, this was hard because there's about 5 games competing for this spot. And I had to weigh different things. But when I really turned my brain off and tried to just think, favorite game from this company, favorite one, go. Write it down. It's Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. This is my favorite FromSoft game. I considered Bloodborne, considered Dark Souls 1, considered Elden Ring. And I think for all of these, like, it goes back to what we were talking about before. Where, like, what is my favorite? And really tap into that and just choose the one that is my favorite from Software. Because I think the best game they have ever made as a company is, well, it might be this. But I think Dark Souls is the most, like, cohesive, best game they've made. Bloodborne might be my, like, it's the one I have the most fondness for because it kind of ushered me into their world.
Mm-hmm.
Elden Ring is the culmination of it all, and it is so phenomenal. It builds on the back of everything else they have done. But then they make this detour here with Sekiro, and I really think this game is so special. The bosses in this game are just, I think they're the best bosses in any game ever. I really do. Best From Software boss design ever. Best boss battles in any of their games, which is really saying a lot because that's why you play From Software games. It's this and Elden Ring in terms of boss design. But just, yeah, I love Sekiro, man. I love this game so much. And you can feel yourself getting better at it. It is so skill reliant. Where everything else you can just kind of, like Elden Ring, it's like, oh, this boss is beating me. Well, I'll go just run around for an hour and level up a bunch and come back, and then we'll try it again. We'll see how I do. This is like, if you're getting your face kicked in by a boss, it's because you are bad at the video game and you need to be better at the video game. And I love that. I love that. It's why with this game specifically, when I hear the arguments of like, well, they should make an easy mode, I'm like, no, they have created a masterpiece because there is no easy mode. It is just play the game and you have to be good at it. And that's that. And I love that. This is my favorite game they've ever made. I had never played a From Software game when we did our last list. It's really funny to look back on that and think about it now. I'm like, that's interesting. I almost had both this and Bloodborne on my list on an original version of it. And then I decided to boot Bloodborne off. Sekiro is the one that rises to the top.
Sekiro is the only From Software game I own. That's because I bought a copy from you.
Yes.
It is the one. The used market is, it's
the price has never dropped. The price has never really dropped on it. I mean, from like $30 to $40 price range. Yeah. It just continues to hold there.
Yeah. So that is the one I own. It is the one that I feel like I would like the most based off what I know. I'm fairly familiar with all the From Software games because everyone talks about them. My friends play them a lot. I've been around it enough to kind of get a general vibe. And I feel like Sekiro is the one I would like the most.
Yeah, it's the most kind of, I don't want to say it's linear because it's definitely wide and open and there's a lot of exploration you can do. But it is the most like single player game centric one of the bunch. Like it is just, you are this samurai and you have to do this task and there's a story and, go. It's very untethered from a lot of the other things that are tied to the Souls games. Like, oh no, you've been invaded by this guy who's got a large sword and he's going to come smack you with it now. Run for your life. Yeah. So it's my favorite From Software game for sure. Shout out to the monkey boss.
Shout out to the monkey boss. The donkey boss. All right. The next one for me alphabetically. Continuing the tradition of picking a game I've recently played. Outer Wilds. And I won't say much, because that's part of the rules with Outer Wilds. You don't talk too much about it. First rule of Outer Wilds, don't talk about Outer Wilds.
This is your inside this time around.
It is. And this is one that will hold. I am confident in that. Because inside, a beautiful, atmospheric, wonderfully designed game. It's evocative. Probably be like the one word I would use. I have never played a game like Outer Wilds. I'm not talking like, time loop stuff or what have you. I have truly never played a game like Outer Wilds. It is unique, and the way it makes you feel is unparalleled. I feel like that's all I can say about it. If anyone was curious about Outer Wilds and really wanted to...
Are you going to make a video about this game?
No, not specifically. Will I reference it? Yes. I don't think so. Maybe an idea will come to me. I don't have plans for it. But if there was a video I could recommend to anyone who's like curious about Outer Wilds, but is like, why won't he go into more detail? There is a video. I will put a link to it in the show notes. It is from friend of the show. I can say that, Javed Starrett. And I think it's called like the Outer Wilds Club or something. And it is this Javed story about figuring out why people talk about Outer Wilds the way I'm talking about it now. And he does it in this beautiful way that doesn't spoil anything, obviously. And so I highly recommend that for more about Outer Wilds. But Logan, you have to play it.
Okay. You are the second close friend that I have had recommend this game to me in like a 6 to 8 month span, and has just come to me and said, like, you must play this. And I met the people who made this game at PAX one year. I had a press appointment to play it. I demoed it. I got into space, and the ship controls were horrible, and I hated it. And yeah, that was about it. That's what I identified with this game, is just like, oh wow, these ship controls are crap. I hate this. Okay. And then I have not written it off, but because obviously I've heard a lot of
that's
people
your first
praise
impression,
it.
though.
But that was just my first impression, yeah. And since then, I've just seen so many people lay the same type of praise on it that you have, and I'm like, what is going on here? Like, it's just very curious to me.
It's for you specifically. I know how much you like Obra Dinn. There's a lot of shared...
I wrote that. I'll tell you right now. That made my honorable mentions.
Okay. There's some Obra Dinn here, so I think that might help persuade you. The name of the video was Joining the Outer Wilds Club. It's from Javed Starrett and Good Blood, but it's over on the Second Wind YouTube channel. There'll be a link in the YouTube description. But if I recommending Outer Wilds to someone and wanted to show them a little bit more about it without spoiling anything of the experience, this is what I would give them to watch. It's a great video, and it's 9.5 minutes. So, Outer Wilds.
Cool.
And I actually just finished the DLC the day we're recording. So, like, I've top to bottom beaten the game. So, it's a ride, dude.
I wanted to get the trophies for it. I have it on Steam. I have it on my Steam Deck, actually. But I think I want to play it on my TV. So
it's it is graphically a beautiful game. Runs 1440p 60 on PS5, or actually, since you're not recording everything, you can play it at 4K with VRR and 60. I would do that if I were you.
Okay. I'll keep an eye on some sales here. We'll see what happens. Or I could just go buy the physical version of it like you did. The botched, screwed up physical version.
They are reprinting it. So, like, if you wanted to wait for a full physical, you could. They they're reprinting it with the DLC on it. But yes, I have the version without the DLC on the disc.
That's funny. I don't know if that'll be unique or expensive.
That will be the
like
collector's item, right? Like that's going to be the thing. So
it'll just be a quirky little thing, probably more than anything.
Yeah. So Outer Wilds right now on PlayStation is $25 with the DLC 40. It might still be on Game Pass, but I don't think you have Game Pass.
I don't have Game Pass. I haven't had a Game Pass in a hot minute. So
make him feel sad.
Okay. My number 3. I'm going to say this before my top 3. I have come to the determination that any of these games in the top 3 could be my number 1. It depends on the day you ask me. Sure. This is where the cutoff line really was I love Sekiro, but I don't think I'm ever going to say Sekiro is my favorite game ever. Any of these other games, top 3, just ask me and I'd probably say, oh yeah.
Depends on the mood.
Depends on the mood. And it's not deviating that much from what it was previously, but it is going to deviate in this way because if I am going to split hairs here, I will say number 3, I'm going to put Ocarina of Time rather than slot it down from number 1 to number 3. This game is why I like games so much. I still think it's phenomenal. I still think it's Nintendo's best game they've ever made. I still think it's the best Zelda game ever made. This is an encapsulation of my childhood, but that's also why it's been hard for me to slot this anywhere other than the top spot over the years, is because I just decided when I was 6 to 8 years old that this is my favorite game ever made. And so I really tried to move away from that, or not move away from it intentionally, because it really still is. I have extreme fondness for this game and I still think the game is fantastic today. Obviously it feels much smaller compared to games we have now, and there's been 20 or 30 years of game development that have come after this, that have expanded upon a lot of the ideas presented here, but I still think it holds up pretty phenomenally. We were talking about 3D Zeldas. Every 3D Zelda is built off of the DNA and the blueprint that this game threw down. And obviously this you could say this game is a blueprint of what was borrows from Link to the Past. Yeah. But obviously done in 3D for the first time and all that stuff. But yeah, I still just think this game is fantastic in its own right. It means a lot to me. And yeah, the common thread here amongst my top 3 is that they are different games from different points of my life. And this is my childhood game. This is my favorite childhood game.
Okay, so there's oh no, League of Legends is going to be on this list. Oh no.
This is my childhood game for sure.
Okay. The living on my own alone game is League of Legends. Okay. All right, alphabetically, just a reminder, mine's just alphabetical. Death's Door.
I was wondering if this would make your list. Yeah,
I've played it 3 times now since it came out. The game's so good. Speaking of top-down 2D Zeldas, it's just a tight game, man. The music, the story, it has just the right amount of post-game secrets. It's a game that respects your time, your curiosity. It has the difficult challenge of combat, but you're never, kind of like what you were saying with Sekiro, it's never the game's fault. It's always you're just not good enough, but not on the hard curve of a From Software. It is challenging, but not kick your teeth in challenging. It is a game that feels oh so good, and especially when you go for the umbrella only run, there's just nothing that feels so good as killing the boss with the weaker weapon out of the gate. It's a great game. It's fun, charming.
Do you have the plat?
I have the platinum twice.
Do you have it on PS4 and PS5?
Yeah, so I have it physically on PS5 and I platted it when I played that. And then I replayed the game here for a project, and it was a PS Plus game at some point. So I had the PS4 version as well. So I went back. I'm like, what's a native 4K 60 on PS4?
I was gonna say it's not gonna fall off that much either,
right?
Just because of its art style.
Like, I'll plat this again. So I have it twice. So yeah, I like this game a lot. It was funny. The thing that kept me from getting 100% of the achievements on Xbox was I didn't know which seeds or whatever I was missing, or which pots to plant them in. This time, I was only missing one seed out of the 50. Like, I naturally, without a guide, found them all again. I was like, this is a sign of a good game being seeded in my brain.
That's always fun when you know where everything's at. Because I played some of the Uncharted games. When I replayed them, I was like, I think there's something over here, and I think there's one over here. And like I was still consulting a guide, but I also like remembered where all the little treasures were hidden to some degree. I was like, this is okay. This game is buried in my brain.
Yep. So yeah, I decided to put Death's Door on here. I love it.
All right, Max. Here you go. It's the
Legends.
It's the living on his own adult Logan favorite game, number 2. God of War.
Yeah, this makes sense. Yeah. Would you beat it in 2 days?
Yeah. I know you have retroactively, like you said before, disliked this game some in hindsight because of what happens. And not dislike it, but you said before, or even in this episode, like, some of Ragnarok took away from how I felt about God of War.
No, I give Ragnarok a hard time because Ragnarok has problems. But no, God of War 2018 is a rock solid game.
Yeah, I just think it has everything. The reason I slotted it above Ocarina of Time is because I think it has a lot of the same DNA as Ocarina of Time in some sense. Like, it's not really open world, but it kind of is, and it just has these like larger areas, but they all kind of funnel back into a hub, like a Hyrule field does. Open zones, yes.
It's Sonic Frontiers.
But they all funnel back into this central hub, and then you go out to different areas from there and explore offshoots, and it's the same sort of thing as Ocarina of Time in that regard, obviously on a far larger scale and not one-to-one comparison. But a lot of those same things that I like about Ocarina of Time are here. And it's there with a far better combat system and I don't want to say better story, because I think Ocarina of Time actually has like one of the most iconic video game stories ever. But a story that is it's fantastic because it's both a sequel and a reboot, and they thread the needle perfectly. Perfectly. Like, it is so difficult what they pulled off with this game, to where if somebody came to me and said they were a new God of War fan, what should they start with? I would say this one. And I don't think that would be an issue really much at all. Like, it contextualizes everything that you need to know. But if you have played the 7 games before it or whatever, it's that much better when you finally do get to those moments.
Yeah, God of War, obviously the games beforehand, no slouch, right? Multi-bajillion-dollar seller, that's not bajillion, $1 million sellers. Plenty of people have played them. And I would do the same thing. I would just recommend 2018. I would probably preface it with find a decent quick summary video. Like, I do think it helps to know like he was a Greek god and like came from that into a Norse pantheon. Like, just to
you need to have like some context, but not a lot. Just
I think if
he
you
was
just
not
say
the best guy.
I think if you say he was a Greek god, son of Zeus, killed his dad. I think if you just say
destroyed
those
that pantheon and fled, basically, like
he gave people free will and dipped. Yeah. So, yeah, that's all I would say. But 2018 is remarkable. Yeah, it is truly an achievement. They did the hard thing, and it paid off.
And then the axe, still maybe just the best mechanic in a game ever. Like, up there, shortlist. The act of throwing it and pulling it back, and then how it's used in puzzles and things like that, and freeze this and throw this over there to hit this, and it's perfect. Like, the axe feels good. Perfect.
Axe feel good. Man, would have been really great if you could have used a similar weapon. God, in the sequel. Man, maybe a little smaller. Like a hammer or something. That would have been awesome. Oh, well.
They did drop the ball. They
dropped the ball big time there. Yeah, God of War 2018 is a great, great game. All right, we've reached the part of the program where I want to talk through my feelings and my struggle. I just feel like there's not enough room on this list. I feel like I almost feel obligated on some level, like to have a platformer in some sense. I love platformers. There are great platformers. Celeste, Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze, Super Mario Odyssey, Super Mario Galaxy, Super Mario 64, Super Mario Brothers 3, all sorts of things. I feel that. A 3D mascot platformer, Sly Cooper, Ratchet and Clank, Jak and Daxter. All these things. Like, I want a platformer. Shovel Knight, which was on my original list.
Astrobot. I thought about Astrobot, honestly.
For a hot second. Like, I feel like I need a platformer, but I can't. I feel like I can't pick one. I feel like I'm falling into the trap of it's not prestigious enough. Or, like, not critically acclaimed enough type mentality. But my favorite, and then you go back and you think about it. And it's like, well, Celeste is really hard. But the music's really good and it's great looking. The Mario games, I really have only played the 3D platformers once.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Tropical Freeze I've played twice. I love Tropical Freeze. I think it's a beautiful evolution and expansion and great 2D platformer design. So I struggle. I don't want Kingdom Hearts on this list. Get out of here.
This is something I've been meaning to ask you, is how quickly you deleted Kingdom Hearts off your list.
Get out of here, Tetsuya Nomura. Birth by Sleep's a great game. It's a great action RPG with really cool magic mechanics and systems. One that's deeply intricate and does all the stuff I love. Like Birth by Sleep could totally be on this list.
Let me go to this too. Why'd you kick off Witcher 3? Because I know that
Witcher 3 is a whole lot of fun. I probably was working on it at the time. It was just like a big Witcher brain. Witcher 3 is good, but I don't think about that game that much. It's got its moments, but whatever. Witcher's fine. But like Journey, Hotline Miami, like that's a great game, but I think of the soundtrack more now than the gameplay in that. Inside, I'd even debated Inside again. I love Inside. I replayed it for the first time last year. It's a stunning game. It's an achievement, and I'm excited to see what Playdead cooks up next. But it's like, is it my favorite, though?
Dude, that's been so long. That has been so long. 8 years.
These episodes can tell you, you know?
Yeah, they have not released a game since the last time.
Well, that one guy left, and they put out a game.
But they still haven't released a game. Like,
was that Space
just full
game
stop.
Good?
Space game. It's like the Alien Invasion one?
Yeah.
It was okay. Which is to say, not really.
See, so yeah, I'm struggling a little bit. And then I've got other games written down here. I have Emily is Away on here. Arkham Knight.
I'm sorry to butt in.
Territory.
Going off your alphabetical order, I know you've booted off Shovel Knight, and you're talking about platformers too. Did you consider that one very much this time, or no?
I feel like I'm Shovel Knighted out. I just want Mina the Hollower.
I feel like Shovel Knight was like a moment in time that became a decade in time. And it's like, okay, please, let's move on.
It's a game I get, right? Like, I get why it stuck around so long. And truly, they made sequels. Plague of Shadows, Spectre of Torment, Kingdom of Cards are all sequels, really, that they gave away for free. Like, major props to them for sticking to their Kickstarter and doing it in a great way. And then Treasure Trove was like, all right, we're done. But honestly, when they were like, here's Shovel Knight DX, Shovel of Hope DX.
Shovel Knight Showdown, Shovel Knight Dig, Shovel Knight DX.
Okay, yeah. Dig was cute, and Puzzle Pocket or whatever, also cute. But I'm just like, I get it. It's the IP, it's the brand. Original interviews were like, we want them on lunchboxes. Like, they've achieved that. And we're getting like,
what they're doing next is the thing that people have wanted, where they're kind of teasing like a 64 version.
Style. Yeah.
Yes.
But like, I want Mina the Hollower. I want something. I know that studio is talented. It's kind of like what we're getting with Naughty Dog to a degree. It's like they're the Last of Us studio now. It's like I would like to see something new from you. I know you guys are capable.
Is Mina the Hollower still planned for this? I thought it was this year.
I don't think they've publicly delayed it, but like there's no way.
I don't think they've set a date actually at all. So
no, they said 2024, I thought.
I've pulled it up here and I don't see anything, but I'll also poke around. Let me look.
So like, yes, Shovel Knight, a great game. The music, gameplay, all of it. King of Cards, I gave a 10 out of 10. I stand by that. But I think personally, just right now, like, I'm a little Shovel Knighted out. I would like a break. So that's why I don't want to put it on there. If I'm just going off vibes, I'd put Super Mario Galaxy. I just think the idea, I love the idea of that game, right? And it's been so long since I've played it. I don't know how it holds up. But I love the idea of Galaxy. I don't know. Amorphous platformer game here. I've written down Sly Cooper 2, and that truly is one of my favorite games of all time. So maybe I put that in honorable mentions as platformer the graveyard.
So you don't have a firm 10th here? Is that what you're saying? Or
yeah, like I don't know. Arkham Knight. I love Arkham Knight. But is it? I don't know. The honorable mentions are all fighting for the final slot, I suppose.
I'll tell you what mine are.
Tell me
my honorable mentions before I get to, or do you just want to know number one?
Tell me
I'll just tell you number one. It's BioShock. I've just decided to accept it after all these years. Like, it's BioShock. For a long time, like I was saying before, I was like, I've always said Ocarina of Time is my favorite game.
You wrote like a big college essay on BioShock.
Yeah, like for the longest time, I was like, it was so apparent that like, oh, BioShock is just my favorite game. But I was always like, no. But it's really Ocarina of Time because that's what spoke to me as a young 6-year-old boy or whatever. And then this time around, I was like, let's just use our brains here. Pretty sure it's BioShock. Think about that game all the time still. Like, more so than any other game on this list. And I think this is what really solidified BioShock first for me this time. Annually, I get the itch to play this game. Every year, I want to play this game again.
The Last of Us.
Every single year, I want to play this game again. And so it's just like, okay, played it like 7-8 times already. I still want to do that. Probably says about everything you need to know right there.
Do you have the platinum? It's a pretty tough platinum, isn't it?
No, it's really not at all.
Or
you have to play on hard.
Can you use the Vita chambers?
You have to play on hard mode, and you can't use Vita chambers at all. But there is a save system in the game where you can save on the spot. And so you can just load.
So you're just saving all the time.
You're just saving all the time, yeah. So it's really not hard at all.
Remember when I tried to buy the BioShock collection with you?
Yeah, and it was sold out everywhere.
Missing a disc, and no other store had it. Man,
it wasn't sold out. Yeah, I guess it was just nowhere to be found. Strangely, yeah, I did a big college essay on this game. This game was the one that spoke to me the most when I was a teen. So this is my teenager game. God of War is my adult game, and
sad dad
Ocarina of Time is my little boy game. So these are like the 3 eras of my life that I feel like really encapsulate like my passions from each of the 10 years of my life. Now that I'm 30 here, and so yeah, but I think BioShock does rise to the top. And
it's funny because it's about a city that's underwater.
True. I'm ready for Judas. Please give us Judas. Please give us Judas.
I'm more obviously excited for Judas than BioShock Antarctica because Ken Levine is doing Judas. But clearly Judas is BioShock in space. So
yeah,
I'm here
dude,
for it.
Next year, I mean, that game doesn't have a release date yet, but next year is looking crazy. That will probably be out. Metal Gear Remake, again, doesn't have a date yet, but it'll probably next year.
GTA 6.
GTA 6. Got the Ghost of the Yotes now. Oh my gosh, there was something else really big. Oh, February next year alone is like huge. There's like 10 games releasing in February now because Assassin's Creed just got pushed into it. The Pirate Yakuza game is coming out then. There's like
Switch 2 will launch next year. So like
Switch 2 will launch, so that's going to bring... Yep. It's looking real crazy.
It's a little stacked here. Yeah.
It's looking really exceptional. I cannot wait for it.
It's not surprising.
My honorable mentions, just throw them out there. League of Legends. I thought this was going to be on there, but I don't hate any game more in existence than League of Legends. And this is the dichotomy of all League of Legends players. It's one of my favorite games ever. Game I've played maybe more than any other game ever. But I hate it at the same time. And I hate it. I should say I don't hate the game itself. The game itself I think is actually still is pretty good. And they do a good job of updating it, obviously. But just the community, man. The community is so far gone. And it's so easy to become part of that is what I hate about it. Is everything that I loathe about League of Legends is so easy to become yourself. And that's not to say I'm, using slurs or anything crazy like some people do.
Calm down, everybody.
But just like, this person ruined the game. I'm gonna, screw it up for them. Oh, or I'm gonna trap these people in here now, even though they're trying to surrender and we've lost this game. Nope, I'm gonna make you wait. Like, it's just very toxic. And so, yes. But the other thing with League, I think I realized I like watching League more than I like playing League. But that played a huge part, like, watching League.
And getting you into it.
Yeah, watching League is one of my favorite things. And one of my favorite memories forever will be going to the World Finals in San Francisco and witnessing probably the best series of League of Legends that has ever been played in history live in an arena with 30 or 40,000 people. One of the coolest things I've ever been able to do. So I love League for that, but I hate it for so many other things. I mentioned Resident Evil. I mentioned From Software Dark Souls. Perhaps the biggest fall off other than KOTOR would be Arkham City, but I just haven't replayed Arkham City since it came out. Have never done a second playthrough of that game ever.
Really?
Yeah. And so I think it's just kind of dwindled in my mind because of that. I have no doubt I love it still. But I need to go back to it. I want to go back to it.
I replayed those games, I think in 2019. I replayed the trilogy.
Yeah,
because it killed Arkham Asylum. I got about 3/4 of the way through, and then my PS4 Pro died.
I remember when that happened, actually, for you.
And then I played City and Night on Xbox, I believe, because I had to wait to get my Death Stranding PS4 Pro. I think that's what happened. So
that sounds about right. I remember you telling me about that. So yeah, Arkham City, I need to go back and play.
Those games hold up.
Arkham City or Arkham Knight looks like it could have come out yesterday.
Yep,
like that's how good that game still looks.
Look good.
That game looks really good. I would like to replay him at some point, especially with the VR one coming out. Not that I would replay him before that, but I don't know. Maybe I'll just get into the Batman zone here. I'm disappointed that I didn't have Spider-Man representation of any sort on my list. The thing that could have done it this time obviously would have been like one of the newer games, but with more distance from those games,
2 and left it ambiguous.
Yeah, the more distance I get from those games, there's something that I don't like about them. And I saw somebody finally put it the other day. They really, I think, drew attention to what I think it is. And it's that something about it feels sterile. I don't know how to explain this. Like that world of Spider-Man that like Insomniac has created feels like it has just gone through so many script revisions from 5 different parties involved trying to make this game. Like, it doesn't feel raw to a certain degree. It feels very corporate, because I mean, PlayStation's involved, and Insomniac's involved, and Marvel's involved, and they gotta and so it just comes across. And that's not to say anything. I like those games a lot, but it doesn't feel real in the same way that like the Raimi movies do to me, or something like that. It just feels, I don't know. It feels very strange at times. I don't like the characters. I don't like the interpretations of those characters necessarily.
It all went downhill when they changed Peter's face again.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of that either. Not a fan of that.
Too much.
Last couple things call out. Hades I thought of.
Me too.
Hades I thought of. I was going to ask you about that one. I thought about it. Deleted it quickly, but I did think about it. And then another one I flirted with, but ultimately cut, was Doom Eternal. I love Doom Eternal. Maybe my favorite first-person shooter ever. But it ends on such a sour note, and that really does kill it. Like, if they could just cut out that last level, be like, oh, perfect game. But that last level is such a downer. So that's why I left it off here.
Okay.
But yeah. The one thing I will say, kind of in closing on my end, I'm surprised how many games from the past 8 years have really been at the top of my consideration here. Like, it has been a good little stretch we've been on this past decade.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's recency bias either. I just think we have really had some truly phenomenal games come out over the past 8 years.
Yeah, I mean, 5 of mine are from the last 8 years. If I didn't do one per developer, there would have been more of those. Some honorable mentions I didn't mention in my platformer spiral. What Remains of Edith Finch? I was thinking about that one quite a bit.
It's a good one.
But then, Breath of the Wild. I think based off what I've played of Tears of the Kingdom, like I just think naturally Tears of the Kingdom would trump Breath of the Wild from like a critical perspective. Probably emotional perspective, Breath of the Wild wins out because it was at such a moment where we needed that as a community and fans of the series and Nintendo. Like, we needed a slam dunk like that. So, there's those. I would probably put Birth by Sleep on a list, like a bigger list. So, like, I joke about Kingdom Hearts and its betrayal of me, but, Birth by Sleep is still good. A lot of those games are still good.
I don't want to go down a rabbit hole with this because I know it's a long one. But, did you see Nomura's comments the other day at all?
That he wants to retire?
Yes. And he's like, I'm writing Kingdom Hearts 4 or creating it with the idea of it like basically being the beginning of the end. And he knows that there's an ending and he kind of has one in mind. And they're now working towards that. Like an actual conclusion. And I'm like, we'll see, buddy. We'll see.
We'll see if your big shoe go. I heard he wanted to retire and wrap it up before he did retire. So the two would coincide, I suppose.
He also said in the same interview that whenever he's working on Kingdom Hearts 4, he goes back and he watches YouTube lore compilation videos of the series to remind himself of what he wrote in previous games.
It's a good idea. It's good on him. Smart. Let the community do the work for you, buddy. One day I will replay Kingdom Hearts 3, and it probably won't be as bad as I feel like it is. But I think that does it. This was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be.
It's probably because we chose to talk about the state of play too, but it's okay.
It's okay. It's a good Millennial Gaming Speak reunion. It's fine. It's a lot of fun. Well, thank you, buddy, for doing this with me. It was fun to revisit the history.
I very much enjoyed revisiting and debating whether or not God of War should be number one or BioShock should be number one or League of Legends should make an appearance.
Since Infinite, so I haven't played any BioShock games in over 10 years.
Got to catch up before Judas is a secret BioShock game.
That won't happen.
That's
not going to happen. No. I mean, it is a BioShock game, but it's not a BioShock game. Same deal. The fine people can go find your work over at comicbook.com, where you write about, review PlayStation hardware, you write your hot opinions and video game news of the like. You're not just PlayStation, but it's a lot of stuff. So anyway, go check out Logan's work over at comicbook.com. And for myself, you could check out my writing over at maxfrequency.net and the like there. I've got all sorts of stuff in the pipelines. A lot of stuff been writing this month lately, so it's been fun. And then, of course, you could check out the show notes for the episode over at maxfrequency.net/MFP-42. It's where you'll find the links to joining the Outer Wilds Club or anything else we talked about, and they'll be in your podcast player as well. And then Logan and I have our own podcast, which we are chipping away at, Chapter Select.
It will return.
It will. Someone needs to go finish Metroid Prime 2 Echoes.
Chapter Select will return. I'm probably actually going to go play that.
You should.
Before I go to bed.
Be a good boy.
Lay down in bed and play it on a non-Nintendo device.
What? What? Don't tell the people. He's got a Wii in his bed. He's playing on the Wii in bed. It is in the works, I promise. The show is still in production. We just got to get through Echoes. And then it's Hunters, which is a shorter game. And then Corruption, which I need to play. So it'll be fun. So go check out that show. It's a seasonal retrospective podcast that bounces back and forth between its years, exploring its evolution, design, and legacy. We got all sorts of stuff. Paper Mario, The Last of Us, Banjo-Kazooie, Resident Evil, Pokemon. A lot of stuff we talked about tonight. You can get deeper thoughts over on those shows. But I think that'll do it. And until next time, adios.